Chapter 378. Making an exception for you. I woke up this morning to see that we've all made it to the top 10. You guys are so awesome. I'll keep writing these days. I hope I can work hard enough this year to be worthy of myself and all of you. I'll try my best to finish this round and give you an explanation. P.S. Recently, some people say that the plot is a bit dull because it's a buffer period. After this period, the plot will get better and better. But Lao Guan's style has always been like this. I hope you can understand. In this society, strength and background are important. For some small figures, you can't talk about law and morality with them. You have to let them know that you are a big shot that they can't afford to offend. For example, if you know a big shot that they don't dare to offend, then they will stay away from you and treat you like a big shot. Therefore, Qin Sheng was not in the mood to talk with his fists and feet. He directly showed his trump card and ended the Gordian knot. At this moment, the group of gangsters and the big brother had changed from arrogance to uneasiness. They were not idiots, of course, they knew what was going on. That was, this guy in front of them was definitely not a big shot that they could afford to offend. Otherwise, how could he get so many big shots in the whole Huairou area to help him? The big brother looked at Lao Gua's son and asked, "Do you know who this young man is?" Lao Gua's son, of course, didn't know these real big brothers, but he also realized that the situation was not good. After all, his big brother was so nervous that he almost peed his pants. Moreover, it was easy to tell who was more powerful from the momentum of the two sides. Look at how everyone was dressed, and look at these gangsters, they looked like garbage collectors. I don't know. I thought he was the mausoleum guard here, Lao Gua's son said, trembling. The big brother slapped Lao Gua's son in the face and scolded, "F***CKU. You set me up." Qin Sheng didn't care about their internal conflict. He just stood there, waiting for the next development of the situation with a smile. Next, he would help Lao Gua get justice. "Xiao Sanzi, you're so powerful. So many people." Several middle-aged men walked over slowly. They had already recognized the big brother who was swaggering in front of Qin Sheng. These middle-aged men were also shocked. They were drinking and chatting when they suddenly received a call from the big brother, saying that someone in Huairou did not know the rules and bullied a big shot's son. If they didn't want to be involved, they should see if it was their man. Hearing this, the gang of big brothers immediately rushed over. For that big brother to personally make a phone call, it meant that this big shot was not simple. He might even be a powerful figure. After all, Siju City was a place with crouching tigers and hidden dragons. When they saw the son of this big shot, they didn't expect him to not put on any airs at all. He called them brothers and gave them cigarettes. This made them even more embarrassed. They were all praying that he wasn't one of their people. Otherwise, how could they face the world? After Qin Sheng told them what to do, these big brothers did as they were told. They parked their cars not far away and waited for the call. No one dared to call in advance, or it would be more troublesome. After waiting for more than half an hour, they finally saw the culprit who had tormented them today. They thought that it was a famous person, but they didn't expect that it was a small fry who couldn't even be seen in public. These big brothers were cursing in their hearts. Was it worth it for them to make a move? However, it was a call from the top. No matter how reluctant they were, they had to do it, unless they wanted to die. Some of these big brothers were happy, while some were sad. They were happy that it was not one of their men. They were sad that the big brother was his man. The big brother called Xiao Sanzi saw this middle-aged man and said with a sad face, "Brother Long, why are you here?" Brother Long didn't hesitate. He directly kicked the big brother to the ground and said, "Don't you know why I'm here? Not bad, you're more powerful than me. I think you want to die, don't you?" Xiao Sanzi quickly got up, knelt in front of Brother Long and shouted, "Big brother, I'm sorry. I didn't know he was your friend. I was just used. Big brother, I'm sorry. It's useless to say this to me. I'll teach you a lesson when we get back." Brother Long slapped Xiao Sanzi's face again and scolded him. What bad luck! Only then did Xiao Sanzi understand. He knelt down in front of Qin Shing and cried out, "Grandpa, my dear grandpa, Xiao Sanzi failed to recognize Mount Tai and offended you. Please forgive me and forgive me. Xiao Sanzi is willing to do anything for you." Qin Shing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The big brother, who was so arrogant just now, became a pitiful man in the blink of an eye. Xiao Sanzi was already like this. Lao Guo's son, who was next to him, was already paralyzed on the ground. These people were really ruthless. If they said they wouldn't let them live until tomorrow morning, they definitely wouldn't let them see the sun. Qin Shing couldn't help regretting that he didn't know this guy's background and offended him. Brother Long also apologized. "Brother, it's all my fault. I didn't teach my men well and caused you trouble. Don't worry, I'll give you a satisfactory explanation later." Qin Shing smiled and said, "You're welcome. It's just a small misunderstanding." "Then what do you think we should do?" Brother Long asked for Qin Shing's opinion. He said he would kill Xiao Sanzi and bury him alive without hesitation. Qin Shing had already thought of a solution. At least he had to respect these big brothers. After all, he still needed their help. He looked at Xiao Sanzi and said, "I'll leave him to you. You can do whatever you want." Then he pointed at Lao Guo's son and said, "But leave him to me. I have something to settle with him." Lao Guo's son almost fainted when Qin Shing pointed at him. He wanted to run away subconsciously, but was caught by Brother Long's two subordinates. They punched him in the chest without hesitation and almost knocked him out. "Brother Long, I may need your help," Qin Shing continued. Now that the matter was over, the next step was to solve Lao Guo's problem. Brother Long said respectfully, "You're welcome. Just tell me what to do." Qin Shing smiled and said, "I'll lend you some brothers and find me a reliable man. I have something to deal with." Brother Long agreed immediately. "It's nothing. I'll arrange it right away." At this time, Qin Shing looked at Brother Long and the other big brothers and said politely, "I'm sorry for troubling you today. I hope you can forgive me. You're all influential people in Huairou district. I don't come here often, but I have a small request. I hope you can take care of me in the future." The big brothers hurriedly said, "Brother, you're welcome. We're all family. Just tell me what you need." They knew clearly that the young man in front of them was definitely not simple. Not to mention his temperament, his behavior today was not something that a child from an ordinary family could do. He was very experienced. Facing them, he was neither servile nor overbearing, and showed enough respect. He was not simple at all. Qin Shing looked back at the cemetery behind him and said, "It's not a big deal. My mother is sleeping here and I don't want anyone to disturb her peace. I hope you can be careful." Hearing this, they couldn't help feeling a little scared. If something really happened here, they might not face this young man, but the big shot behind him. After the big brothers agreed, Qin Shing politely saw them off. Xiao San and his men were also taken away. But Brother Long left a trusted subordinate and several brothers for Qin Shing. Of course, Lao Guo's son was also here. When everyone was gone, Qin Shing came back and squatted in front of Lao Guo's second son. "I heard from Lao Guo that what's your name again?" Oh, Guoxiong. Bear as in black bear." "Master, whatever you want. Even a panda will do." Guoxiong didn't dare to talk nonsense at this time. Qin Shing didn't have time to talk nonsense with him. He continued, "I know what happened to Lao Guo. You three are really bad. I'm a little free, so I want to reason with you. Now you lead the way. I'll ask them to invite your brother and sister here for a chat." Guoxiong was a little embarrassed. After all, it was a family scandal. Qin Shing's face changed and he stared at him. Guoxiong immediately agreed. Okay. I'll lead the way." Qin Shing stood up and smiled at Brother Long's men. "Brothers, sorry to bother you. I'll wait for you in the restaurant box at the intersection. Let's meet later." If they don't want to come, you'll have to be more careful. Brother Long's men, of course, understood what he meant. They smiled and led Guxiong to the car and left. Only then did Qin Shing walk back leisurely. Looking back, he felt that he was really bored to death. There was no connection between them at all. But on second thought, there were many things in the world that needed idle people like him. Otherwise, those people wouldn't know the rules. When Qin Shing returned to the yard, Lao Guo, who was restless, ran to him and asked, "Little Qin, are you okay?" Qin Shing smiled and said, "Lao Guo, don't worry. What can happen to me? They're all nobodies with small noses and small eyes. They can only scare ordinary people, but those who are slightly more powerful will be exposed." Lao Guo was relieved. "That's good. I'm afraid that bastard will do something to you. If so, I'm sorry." Qin Shing couldn't do anything about Lao Guo's temper. He was too honest. He said, "Lao Guo, let's go out." "What for?" "I'm going to the mountain." Lao Guo was puzzled. Qin Shing said meaningfully, "Go and meet your 3 filial children. I think from now on, they won't dare to treat you like this anymore." Qin Shing's eyes lit up. Lao Guo's face changed slightly. He wanted to say something but didn't. He followed Qin Shing out. In the restaurant box at the intersection, Qin Shing chatted with Lao Guo over tea and a plate of peanuts to kill time. It was a pity that they couldn't drink. It was a good choice to drink some erguotu in this weather. About an hour and a half later, Brother Long's men finally led Lao Guo's 3 children into the box. Guxiong, who knew how powerful Qin Shing was, dared not to breathe loudly. The other 2 didn't know the seriousness of the situation. They were a little scared at first, but they became proud when they saw Lao Guo. "You old bastard, why did you drag us here? Are we here to send you off?" Lao Guo's daughter cursed viciously. It was rare to see someone scolding his own father like that. Qin Shing saw that Lao Guo's eyes turned red when he was scolded. An honest man who had lived for most of his life was so aggrieved at this moment. It made Qin Shing sigh with emotion. Qin Shing squinted and walked to the woman slowly. He said calmly, "I don't usually hit women, but I'm going to make an exception for you today. You're so disgusting." Before the sharp-tongued woman could understand what was going on, Qin Shing had already slapped her pale face, which was smeared with cheap makeup. The woman had never been humiliated like this before. She fell to the ground directly. Lao Guo's eldest son, who was standing next to her, felt lucky that he didn't say anything. Otherwise, he would be the one getting slapped. P.S. I just did a stupid thing. I sent the manuscript as a chapter, and then I had to replace it with a new chapter. But the number of words was a bit short, so I had to use symbols to replace it. I hope you can understand. It seems that I'm not used to having a manuscript. I guess you're not used to my hard work either. Chapter 379. Reluctant to leave, keep up the good work and ask for more votes. Filial piety was the most important of all virtues. Qin Shing always believed that if a person didn't even have the most basic filial piety, he was definitely not worth being friends with. If he treated his parents like this, what else could he do to you? As a child, you can let down anyone, but you can't let down your parents who raised you. Even if your parents did something wrong, at least they wouldn't have any bad intentions towards you. It's just that sometimes their good intentions might lead to bad things. Qin Shing wanted to help Lao Guo because he had never been with his parents since he was a child and always envied the warmth of other people's families, or because he had been reflecting on his relationship with Qin Chang'an recently. After Lao Guo's daughter was knocked to the ground, she had wanted to fight with Qin Shing like a shrew. But when she saw Qin Shing grabbing the plates on the table, she was so scared that she didn't dare to say anything. Lao Guo felt sorry for Qin Shing. After all, Qin Shing was his daughter. He wanted to persuade Qin Shing, but Qin Shing had told him not to stop him from doing anything today. But he would not go too far. Lao Guo had to give up. Thinking of how the 3 beasts had treated him all these years, He didn't feel sorry for them at all. It could be considered as compensation. Qin Shing signaled Brother Long's men to help Lao Guo's daughter up, put down the plate, sat on the chair, and snorted at them. Do you know why I called you here? Lao Guo's children didn't dare to say anything. Qin Shing continued. I guess you know what you've done to Lao Guo all these years. So I want to reason with you. You can't bully an honest man, let alone your parent. It's a sin, you know? God is watching you. Aren't you afraid of retribution? Aren't you afraid that your children will do the same to you? Lao Guo's children all lowered their heads and didn't dare to answer Qin Shing. But Qin Shing knew they didn't regret it, so he had to work harder. Qin Shing suddenly said, Kneel down. Lao Guo's children heard this and looked at each other. They wanted to refute but were afraid of being beaten, so they just stood there and didn't know what to do. Qin Shing glared at Guoxiong, who had already suffered a loss. Guoxiong was scared out of his wits. He knelt on the ground with a plop and shouted, Master, I was wrong. I will do whatever you say. I will listen. The other two were still unmoved. They even despised Guoxiong a little. Qin Shing sneered and said, You won't shed a tear until you see the coffin. After that, Qin Shing winked at Brother Long's subordinate. Of course, those men knew what to do. They immediately grabbed the other two children and made them kneel down after punching and kicking them. Do you think that I brought you here to talk about life's principles? My principles are my fists. If you don't admit your mistakes, fine, I'll beat you until you do. Qin Shing said in a powerful and resonant voice. After he finished speaking, the rest of the people immediately became timid. They no longer had the slightest bit of arrogance. After all, everyone was afraid of being beaten. Qin Shing continued, Originally, it had nothing to do with me. But Lao Guo had guarded my mother's tomb for so many years. How could such an honest man be bullied? So I was a little angry and came here to reason with you. What are you in my eyes? You are ants that I can crush at any time. Moreover, you have wives and children. It's too easy for me to deal with you. If you don't believe me, you can ask Guoxiong how he got all those scars. The other two children were just wondering how Guoxiong got hurt. They thought that he had been beaten because he gambled and owed money again. Now they completely understood. Guoxiong took the lead and said, Master, my dear master, I was wrong. Don't worry, I will be filial to my father in the future. I won't let him suffer any more. It's useless to say that to me, Qin Shing said impatiently. Guoxiong immediately knelt and crawled forward to Lao Guo. He said, Dad, I have been wrong all these years. Please forgive me. I will be filial to you in the future and take good care of you. Among the three siblings, Guoxiong was the most arrogant. After all, he had been in the underworld and knew a lot of people from all walks of life. His brother and sister were often harassed. Today, Guoxiong had admitted his mistake. They had been afraid for a long time. However, they didn't know how to say it out of respect. Qin Shing continued, If Lao Guo hadn't stopped me today, I would have found someone to destroy you. But you are his children, so I want to give you a chance. As long as you are still living in Beijing, I have many ways to deal with you. If you don't want your families to be affected, you should be sensible. If you want to call the police, I think I'm more familiar with the Public Security Bureau than you. Qin Shing's words completely broke the last line of defense of the other two. Everyone wanted to live a peaceful life and didn't want to live in fear all day. The woman, who had been mean just now, sobbed and crawled to Lao Guo. She hugged Lao Guo's leg and cried, Dad, please forgive us. We didn't know any better and made you suffer so much. We won't do it again. I'll take you home today and let you live a happy life. Lao Guo said with a smile, Dad, please forgive us. Lao Guo's eldest son saw that his younger brother and sister had surrendered. He was afraid that the man in front of him would vent his anger on him, so he hurriedly crawled over and hugged Lao Guo's leg, crying. Qin Shing didn't know whether he should laugh or cry. He didn't know whether it was the right thing to do, but it was worth it as long as Lao Guo could live a better life. As for whether they were willing or not, Qin Shing couldn't help it. But Qin Shing definitely had a layer of protection, so he said, "If you think that as long as you live through today, you will be fine, I think you are wrong. From today on, I will ask someone to keep an eye on you. If you do anything unfilial, don't worry, I will teach you a lot of principles of life." "Master, we don't dare. We absolutely don't dare." Guxiong was more sincere than anyone else, because he knew how powerful this man was. Qin Shing couldn't stand there crying and crying, so he shouted directly, "Stop acting. Get up. Let me tell you what you should do." Hearing that, they stopped crying and stood up in a hurry, afraid that they would be beaten again. "From today on, you will give Lao Gua 3,000 yuan as alimony every month. It is not a lot for you, right? Also, you must show your filial piety to Lao Gua on holidays and birthdays. If Lao Gua is willing to continue to guard the mausoleum, we will talk about it. If not, you three families will take turns to take care of him. How to take turns is up to you." Qin Shing told them the plan and asked, "Any objections?" Hearing that, although they were very unwilling, they had no choice but to agree. No. Lao Gua thought that Qin Shing was going to drive him away, so he stood up tremblingly and said, "Little Qin, I am not too old to walk. I want to continue to guard the mausoleum for your family. If I really can't, can I go?" Qin Shing was touched. "Lao Gua, I don't mean to drive you away. I just want to let you choose. If you want to continue to stay there, you can stay." That's good. Lao Gua was relieved. He had been used to the mausoleum, and now he would be uncomfortable wherever he went. That was the way of old people. After comforting Lao Gua, Qin Shing looked at Lao Gua's children again and said, "You heard it. At least for now, you don't have to take turns to take care of him. But you have to do what you should do, or you will bear the consequences." "We will. Don't worry," the three children said one after another. Qin Shing thought that he had done what he should do, and the next thing was to see the result. He said, "Okay, you can go now." Hearing that, the three children let out a long sigh of relief and couldn't wait to leave. Before leaving, they had to say good things to Qin Shing and Lao Gua, which was funny. When Guxiong was about to leave, he was stopped by Qin Shing. Qin Shing sneered and said, "Guxiong, I heard that you like gambling. I will tell the brothers in Huairo that from now on, whoever sees you at the gambling table will break a leg first, and then an arm the second time. If you want to take the risk, you can have a try." "Master, I dare not. I really dare not." Guxiong was so scared that his legs went soft. Qin Shing scolded him, "Get out." Guxiong hurried out, not daring to look at the road, and almost hit the wall. After the three children left, Qin Shing's business was finished, so Brother Long's brothers could go back. Qin Shing walked to them and said, "Brothers, you have worked hard." Not at all. This is what we should do." The leading man responded politely. After all, the man in front of him had an unfathomable background, and even his brother had to be respectful to him. Qin Shing took out the 2,000 yuan he had prepared and handed it to him. "This is a gift for you. Let us have a good meal. Don't refuse, or I will be unhappy." Hearing that, the man had to take it, but he admired Qin Shing's way of dealing with people. He had learned a lot today. After thanking Qin Shing again and again, he left with his men. Everyone was there except Qin Shing and Lao Gua. Qin Shing took a deep breath and said, "It's finally over. Lao Gua, it's almost time for dinner. Let's eat here today." At this time, Lao Gua suddenly knelt on the ground and said with tears, "Little Qin, thank you. Thank you." He was about to kowtow to Qin Shing, which startled Qin Shing. He hurried to help Lao Gua and said, "Lao Gua, what are you doing? This will shorten my lifespan. I should thank you. You've guarded my mother's tomb for so many years. It's my duty to do this for you." Lao Gua ignored Qin Shing and continued to thank him. Qin Shing sighed with emotion. It was just a little effort for him, but it made an old man who was dozens of years older than him feel this way. How could he not be grateful? Of course, he didn't know how much it affected Lao Gua today, because the old man got his revenge today. How could he not be grateful? It was over. Qin Sheng and Lao Gua went back to their regular life, and the Spring Festival was approaching. Lao Gua also bought some things for the Spring Festival. Meanwhile, he tidied up the yard and the room to make it look like the Spring Festival. On the 28th of the 12th lunar month, Qin Sheng chatted with his mother for a long time. When he came back, Lao Gua had already prepared lunch. Qin Sheng smiled and praised Lao Gua for his cooking skills, but Lao Gua lowered his head and didn't say anything, because 1 month was finally up and Qin Sheng was leaving today. This month was the happiest time he had in years, so he didn't want Qin Sheng to leave. But he knew that Qin Sheng had to leave, because he was a man of great ambition. Just after noon, Qin Ran drove to pick up Qin Sheng. She couldn't wait to leave. This month was really like a year, so she rushed over as soon as she finished her work. Have you packed everything? In the yard, Qin Ran saw Qin Sheng, who had rough skin. She felt sorry for him and held his hand. Qin Sheng looked at the suitcase and backpack in his hand and smiled. Nothing, everything is packed. Then let's go. Qin Ran picked up Qin Sheng's luggage and said directly. Today was the 28th of the 12th lunar month, and the day after tomorrow was New Year's Eve, so they had a busy schedule. They would go to Xi'an the next day, Beijing on New Year's Eve, and Shanghai on the third day of Chinese New Year. Everything had been arranged. When they put the luggage in the trunk, Qin Ran remembered and asked, "Where is Uncle Gua?" "In his room," Qin Sheng said casually. Qin Ran was a little dissatisfied. "Why doesn't he come out to see you off?" Qin Sheng didn't say anything. He knew why Lao Gua didn't come out. Of course, he didn't want him to leave, which made him sad. He shouted, "Lao Gua, I'm leaving. Won't you see me off?" Lao Gua didn't come out, not even a sound. "Lao Gua, don't miss me. I'll come to see you often. Take care of yourself when I'm away." Qin Sheng continued to shout. Lao Gua still didn't come out. Qin Sheng sighed. He wouldn't go in to say goodbye to Lao Gua, because it would make him feel worse. At this moment, Qin Ran understood what was going on. She didn't expect that her brother and Lao Gua would be so close after a month. "Sister, let's go." Qin Sheng sighed. They looked at each other and got in the car slowly. Qin Ran started the car and honked several times. They waited for a few seconds, but Lao Gua still didn't come out. Finally, they had to leave. Chapter 380. Chapter 379. I have a plan. Guess how long I can hold on. Ha ha ha, I won't let you down. I hope you can continue to support me. In this world, most people were ordinary people. They might not have a legendary life, and they might not have glorious deeds that they could brag about to their children. However, every ordinary person was unique. They all had different feelings of joy, anger, sorrow, joy, separation, and reunion. In everyone's eyes, Lao Gua was just a grain of sand in the vast sea of people, unimportant. Lao Gua had never thought that anyone in this world would care about him, including his 3 ungrateful children. But Qin Sheng, a young man who had nothing to do with him, gave him the love and warmth he needed most. That was why Lao Gua was touched and reluctant to part with him. He knew that Qin Sheng would come again in the future, but he couldn't live like this anymore. Because of Lao Gua's reluctance, Qin Sheng was a bit sad on the way back. Lao Gua was not a big shot, but an ordinary person. Qin Sheng never looked down on him. He treated him as a friend, not to mention that he was guarding his mother's tomb. It's almost the new year. Cheer up. Don't be sad. Qin Ran touched Qin Sheng's head and laughed. She didn't expect her brother to have such a deep friendship with Lao Gua that they were reluctant to part ways. Qin Sheng took a deep breath, forced a smile, and asked, "Sister, when are we going to Xi'an tomorrow?" Speaking of this important event, Qin Ran said seriously, We will leave at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning and arrive in Xi'an before 11 o'clock. My father will go with us to visit Grandpa's grave. After that, he will go back to Beijing. He has something to do in the afternoon and evening. I'll stay with you in Xi'an for a day. I know you have a lot of things to do. I also want to thank the Lin family in person for taking care of you all these years. With such a considerate sister, Qin Xing felt that his life would be better and better. He was moved and said, "Sister, you're so nice. Fortunately, I haven't been with you for more than 20 years. Otherwise, I don't know how much you spoil me." "Are you praising me or insulting me?" Qin Ran didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Qin Xing laughed and said, "Of course I'm praising you. I don't know who is lucky enough to marry a wife like you. I'll miss you. You've only just returned and you're already chasing me away? Don't worry, if you don't get married, I won't get married," Qin Ran said casually, but it was her real thought. She had to see that everything was on the right track for Qin Xing before she could leave the Qin family. She would never let those outsiders bully Qin Xing. After entering the downtown area, Qin Xing felt that the atmosphere of the Spring Festival was getting stronger and stronger. The streets were decorated with lanterns and streamers. Both sides of the road and the lampposts were hung with big red lanterns and china knot. Compared to usual days, there were fewer cars on the road, and it wasn't as congested as usual. This was because most people had already left the city and returned to their hometowns. Many of them only returned once a year. For many people, life was like leaving home. There were many opportunities in the big city, but there was more loneliness in the big city. It was unknown how many people were quietly working hard in this city, only hoping to lift the skirt of the goddess of luck in an instant and finally stand out in this city. People came and went in this city. Some people could not bear the torture of reality and finally left, while others rejoined with hope. Actually, many of them would live a better and more comfortable life if they left this city and returned to their hometown. However, for the sake of the passion and ideals in their hearts, they continued to struggle and struggle. For them, from the moment they left their hometowns, there were only two choices in life: to die in a foreign land or to return home in glory. Qin Xing did not make any comments on this. Everyone had their own choices, and everyone had to be responsible for their own choices. As for whether this life was worth it or not, perhaps one could only wait until one afternoon when he was old, holding his grandson in his arms, drinking tea, looking at those old photos, recalling the past, and sighing with emotion. Only then could he finally put the coffin on the coffin. When Qin Xing and Qin Ran returned to the Sihiyuan, the entire Sihiyuan had been cleaned and decorated with lanterns and streamers. It was very lively. Gongsun had bought several carts of goods for the Spring Festival, but things like couplets and the word "fu" could not be put up until the day after tomorrow. Qin Xing went back to his room to take a shower and change his clothes. He had not taken a proper shower for a month, and had been living there casually. No wonder Qin Ran said that he was smelly. After the shower, Qin Ran was already waiting for him in the living room before he thought about what he would do in the afternoon. She said that she would take him to get a haircut and that he had to have a new hairstyle for the Spring Festival. After that, she would take him to buy new clothes for the Spring Festival and some goods for the Spring Festival. Qin Xing muttered, "I'm already an adult. Why should I wear new clothes for the Spring Festival? I'm not a kid who hasn't grown up yet. Besides, I haven't worn many of the clothes I bought some time ago." Qin Ran said angrily, "Not to mention that you are not married yet. Even if you are married, you will always be a child who can't grow up in front of me. Besides, it's been more than 20 years. It's the first time for you to celebrate the Spring Festival with me after you've grown up. How can you not tidy up well?" These words made Qin Xing unable to refute. Although he did not like shopping, he could not spoil his sister's mood, so he could only go out with her. Gongsun, who was next to him, was already grinning from ear to ear. The spring festival this year was more lively and more festive. The reason why Qin Ran did this was not only that this year was the first time that Qin Shing celebrated the spring festival with them after he came back, which had a different meaning. The most important reason was that this year's spring festival would have a deeper meaning for Qin Shing. At that time, the Sihiyuan would welcome many guests. His father would formally introduce Qin Shing to everyone and then announce that his son was back. At that time, his father would also take Qin Shing to visit his relatives and friends. These relatives and friends were not simple people. This was equivalent to telling everyone that Qin Shing would officially inherit all his things. How could Qin Ran not take this seriously? In this way, Qin Ran took Qin Shing to shop for half a day. When they returned to the Sihiyuan, it was already 7 o'clock in the evening. Big and small bags almost filled the entire trunk and back seat. Gong Sun called several servants to carry the bags back and forth twice. In the living room, Qin Chang'an knew that this pair of siblings went out to buy goods for the spring festival, so he had been waiting for them to have dinner. Originally, there was a high-level party tonight, which was also the last gathering of their small circle before the spring festival. However, Qin Chang'an thought that Qin Shing had observed mourning for his mother for a month. On the first day when he returned to the Sihiyuan, he had to accompany the two children to have dinner. Other things were not important, so he rejected it. If he went there after dinner, they would not say anything. "Dad, didn't Uncle Gongsun say that you have a social engagement tonight?" Before Qin Ran and Qin Shing left, they had asked Uncle Gongsun about the schedule of the old man. At that time, Uncle Gongsun had said so. She still had some resentment in her heart. This old man really did not take Qin Shing seriously. No wonder Qin Shing could not be close to him. However, she could understand that the old man had to maintain some things in his position. After all, he was just a businessman. So when she saw the old man, Qin Ran was a little surprised. Qin Chang'an stood up and said with a smile, "It's not a big deal, so I rejected it. Qin Shing just came back today. As an old man, I have to have a good dinner with you." After Qin Ran walked over, she directly held her father's arm and said, "Dad, when did you become so considerate? Why didn't I know that after so many years? It seems that I have benefited from my brother." "Child, how can you talk like this?" Qin Chang'an said with a smile, but in his heart, he was bursting with joy. Although Qin Shing came back and his relationship with Qin Shing did not make much progress, he had gained something else. That was, his daughter was more and more important to him, not as cold as she used to be. Facing his father, Qin Chang'an, Qin Shing still could not call him dad. For many people, it was too easy. Wasn't it just a word? But for Qin Shing, he had never called him this word for so many years. Secondly, he had not really untied the knot in his heart. "You are back." Qin Chang'an saw Qin Shing's embarrassment, but he took the initiative to greet him. Qin Shing smiled awkwardly and did not know where to put his eyes and hands. Qin Chang'an walked over, patted Qin Shing on the shoulder and said, "Nice clothes. Your sister must have picked them for you. Don't stand here. You must be hungry. Let's go to dinner first." The family of three moved to the dining room. Gongsun hurried to ask the servants to serve the dishes. Finally, he sat at the last seat at the table. The atmosphere of the dinner was not bad. Qin Ran, who was smart enough to change the atmosphere, deliberately led the topic, such as some interesting things between Qin Shing and Lao Guo in the cemetery, and deliberately said that Lao Guo was reluctant to see Qin Shing off today, and so on. When the dinner was about to end, Qin Chang'an took the initiative to say, "I have something to do later. If you and your sister go out to play, don't play too late. Come back early. We have to go to Xi'an tomorrow morning." Then he looked at Qin Shing and said, "By the way, Qin Shing, I asked your Uncle Gongsun to prepare some things for the Lin family. You can see if they are suitable or if you need to add anything. But I may not have time to see them this time. I will ask your sister to say hello and thank them for me. I will go to them next time. Well, okay, I got it. Qin Chang'an's words made Qin Shing feel a little warm. He could see Qin Chang'an's sincerity to the Lin family. But Qin Shing still did not know how to say it. He hesitated for a moment and said again, "There is one thing." Before Qin Shing could say it, Qin Chang'an waved his hand and said, "You don't have to say it. Don't worry about it. I have a plan in mind. I have already sent people to do it." Qin Chang'an's words shocked him. He had thought that Qin Chang'an was too busy to care about this thing. He was still thinking about how to say it to Qin Chang'an. He did not expect that Qin Chang'an had already taken it into consideration. Qin Shing was speechless for a moment. He did not know how to respond, let alone say thank you. Qin Chang'an continued, "This thing has nothing to do with you. The Lin family raised you for the Qin family. This is a great kindness. I have to pay it back in person. Otherwise, your mother and the dead old man will not let me go." Qin Shing was more moved and did not know what to do. Sitting next to him, Qin Ran just lowered her head and smiled. Of course, she knew what Qin Shing had been thinking about. How could Qin Shing, who valued friendship and righteousness, forget about Father Lin? Qin Chang'an did not want Qin Shing to be restless, so he stood up and said, "I'm done. I'll leave first. You two take your time." After Qin Chang'an left, Qin Ran patted Qin Shing's shoulder and said, "Qin Shing, although he has done something wrong, he is definitely a qualified father. It's just that sometimes he doesn't know how to express his fatherly love. You will understand in the future." Okay. This time, Qin Shing nodded sincerely. In the evening, Qin Shing and Qin Ran did not go out. Qin Shing accompanied his sister in the living room to watch TV and chat for a while. Then he went back to his room to read. He had been wondering whether he should call Auntie Wang and Xin in advance to tell them that he would go back to Xi'an tomorrow. In the end, he gave up the idea and gave them a surprise. At that time, he could also meet Hao Lei, who must have gone back to Xi'an. Since he had developed a good work and rest habit during the morning period, it did not take long for him to go to bed directly. This sleep was very comfortable. Chapter 381. Ashes to Ashes, Dust to Dust. Tomorrow was New Year's Eve. There was a lot of traffic going to the airport. Although today was the official holiday, many companies had already taken a few days off in advance to avoid the last flood of people during the Spring Festival. There were only a few days of official holidays. In addition to visiting relatives and spending time with their families, they also had to meet many friends and classmates. After all, most people could only see each other once a year, and their relationships were maintained by the Spring Festival every year. A humane company could always gain more loyalty from employees. Although it was an era where money and interests were paramount and job hopping was the most direct way to get promoted and get a raise, people were after all human beings, not machines. They had 7 emotions and 6 desires, so they had to weigh the pros and cons and make choices. When Qin Sheng was studying in Shanghai, he would go home with Su Qin every year. It was a special feeling to hug each other in the bedroom full of different smells and people listening to the accents and stories from all over the world. Su Qin should have returned to Xi'an. However, Qin Sheng did not have time to see her. Even if he had time, he did not want to disturb Su Qin. After all, he had promised Uncle Su. After graduating from high school, Qin Sheng only returned to Xi'an a few times every year. Except for the time when he came back from traveling, this time should be the most special. Every year when the new year was approaching, Qin Sheng's classmates and friends who were studying or working in Xi'an would share a song in their WeChat moments to welcome their classmates and friends who were in other places. After listening to the song, those classmates and friends who were in other places would feel more and more eager to return home. This song was called Back to Xi'an, and the singer was Ma Fei, a famous local singer in Xi'an. Qin Sheng suddenly thought of this song, so he told the driver in the front, Xiao Lu, turn on the Bluetooth. I want to listen to this song. There were 2 cars in the Qin family. Qin Chang'an and Gongsun sat in the front car, and Qin Xing and Qin Ran sat in the back car. After hearing Qin Xing's words, Qin Ran said with jealousy, "Xi'an is indeed your home. Are you in a good mood to listen to a song?" I suddenly thought of this song, and a lot of things and friends in the past, Qin Xing said thoughtfully. Qin Ran joked, "I'm kidding. Let me hear what song you want to listen to and see what your taste is." So Qin Xing connected the Bluetooth and found Ma Fei's song Back to Xi'an in NetEase Cloud Music. Soon, a familiar melody sounded in the car. Qin Xing looked at the heavy traffic outside the window. For these people, this song was not only about going back to Xi'an, but also about going back to Chengdu, Zhengzhou, Guiyang, and so on. I'll take a picture and post it on Weibo. At noon, I ate mixed bean paste noodles again. There was no oil in the noodles, so it was a little salty. In your dream, Mi Jiapao opened a branch. You should get up and run to the Volvo subway station. The high-rise buildings in the city were connected together, but in Wall, there wasn't a small room that she could afford. You don't have anyone with you, and you don't know when you're going to make the down payment on a Volvo Beijing. Hey my buddies, the tendons are all ready. Hey my buddies, are you still in the subway? Hey my buddies, when are you coming back to Xi'an? Me buddies are waiting for you to meet them in Xi'an. After listening to the song, the smile on Qin Xing's face grew wider. Hearing this familiar Xi'an dialect, it was so kind. The lyrics were simple and straightforward, but the melody was beautiful. With the singing style of the dialect, it had a special flavor. Especially at the end, the conversation between the 2 brothers on the phone was very touching. Every year during the Spring Festival, many people would burst into tears after hearing this song. Eventually, they would leave the big city and return to their homeland. It seems that your feelings for Xi'an are really deep, Qin Ran said with a smile. She didn't feel much about this song. After all, she lived in a different environment. But she could understand Qin Xing's feelings. Qin Xing didn't refute, but replied with a smile, "After all, it's the place where I lived for more than 20 years. The meaning is different." They arrived at the Capital International Airport before 8 o'clock. As expected, the airport was full of people. But Qin Xing took Qin Chang'an's private plane and went through the business boarding building, so it didn't affect much. The plane was still the most advanced Gulfstream G650, and the pilot was still China Airlines. Even the flight attendants were the 2 beauties Qin Xing had met last time. After greeting them with a smile, Qin Xing casually found a seat and sat down. Qin Ran sat opposite to him. The 2 beauties had a better understanding of the Qin family. They knew that the dignified middle-aged man was the owner of this Gulfstream G650, and the extraordinary beauty was the middle-aged man's daughter. However, they didn't know who the young man they met for the second time was. But from their conversation, it seemed that he was the beauty's younger brother, which meant he was the middle-aged man's son. Then why hadn't they seen him before? They didn't want to delve into these things. They just didn't know if this young and handsome man had a girlfriend. If he took a liking to them, they would become phoenixes and live a rich and powerful life without worrying about food and clothing. Therefore, when they served Qin Xing, they were extra considerate and polite. Even their smiles were brighter. Qin Xing definitely didn't know what the 2 beauties were thinking. He chatted with Qin Ran for a while, then closed his eyes and started to catch up on sleep. Qin Ran took out a book and casually killed time. The work before the new year had already ended, so she didn't need to work overtime now. As for Qin Chang'an, who was sitting in the back, he was reading some investment plans. At 10:30, the plane landed at Xi'an Xianyang International Airport. When walking out of the door of the airport, Qin Xing took a deep breath of the familiar air. Although the haze was a bit heavy, even if he was breathing in the haze of his hometown, the smell was the purest. Of course, this was just a joke. Gongsun had already arranged everything. She and had prepared 2 Mercedes-Benz to pick them up. After the Qin family got in the car, they went straight to Zhongnan Mountains. After getting in the car, Qin Sheng was more excited. He hadn't been back for half a year. He chattered and introduced some local customs and landmarks to Qin Ran. After driving for 40 minutes on the round-the-city highway and half an hour on the Guangzhong Ring Road, they finally arrived at the foot of Zhongnan Mountains, where the old master was buried. Zhongnan Mountains, the most blessed land in the world. Qin Sheng was very familiar with this place. He had been to every valley and there were many old friends in the mountain, such as Chang Baji's master. But he didn't know if they were still there. Qin Sheng didn't have time to visit them. He could only find time to visit them next time when he came back. Qin Ran had been to Xi'an several times, but it was her first time to come to Zhongnan Mountains. She had read a lot about Zhongnan Mountains in books, so she began to ask Qin Sheng, a typical local tyrant. Qin Sheng was happy to introduce them. 2 cars stopped by the road. Qin Sheng and Qin Ran got out of the car. Gong Sun took out the things from the trunk and stood next to Qin Chang'an. Qin Chang'an looked at Qin Sheng and said in a low voice, "You are more familiar with this place than anyone else. You lead the way." Qin Sheng nodded and led the others to the inconspicuous grave of the old master. In fact, there was no one there except Qin Chang'an, Qin Ran, and Gong Sun. The others were waiting by the road. The way to the grave was not easy. The winding path was all dirt road. There were many weeds and trees on the side of the road. If they were not careful, their clothes might be torn. A few minutes later, Qin Sheng finally led them to the grave. He pointed at the small mound that was not a grave if one didn't look carefully. "This is it." Qin Chang'an and Gong Sun had been here before, so they were not strange to this place. They were not surprised. Qin Ran was very shocked. She had heard a lot of old men talk about her grandfather's past in Beijing. She had always thought that her grandfather was a mysterious and legendary figure. At least her grandfather's grave was magnificent. How could it be so shabby? This was the real wilderness. It seemed that he had been buried in a random place. "This is it," Qin Ran said in surprise. Qin Sheng knew that his sister didn't believe it, but it was the truth. He smiled bitterly and said, "This is it." Qin Chang'an took the things from Gong Sun and walked slowly to the grave of the old master. He squatted down with difficulty. He was not in good health recently. Seeing that Qin Chang'an had started to worship, Qin Ran and Qin Sheng stopped talking. They took a few steps forward and squatted down on both sides of Qin Chang'an. The 3 of them had a clear division of labor. They were familiar with the procedures of opening the wine, placing flowers and fruits, burning joss paper money, and lighting the incense. It was Qin Chang'an who would light the incense. As the son of the old master, he naturally represented the Qin family, unless the elder brother who had become a monk in Mount Wutai came back. However, the task of sprinkling the wine was given to Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng took the cheapest bottle of Shifeng 375 and sprinkled it on the grave of the old master. At this moment, he had a lot to say, so he murmured while sprinkling the wine, "Grandpa, I'm back to see you again. This time, I'm not alone. There are other people in the Qin family, including your son, your granddaughter, and my sister. I guess you've recognized them all. I guess you have a lot to say to me, but you left too early. Grandpa, I also have a lot to ask you, but I know you won't tell me even if I ask, so I won't ask. I think I'm your grandson. Everything you do must be for my good, but I don't understand it now. Now that I've returned to the Qin family, you don't have to worry about me anymore. As for what happened in the past, let it be ashes to ashes. Since you chose to sleep here, I guess you don't want to be disturbed, so I won't tell anyone except for the people of the Qin family. Well, I've poured you a bottle of wine. If you think it's not enough, remember to tell me in my dream. I'll bring you another bottle next time I come to see you." After all, she had no feelings for the old master. The number of times they met could be counted on one hand. She didn't know whether the old master valued boys more than girls. She was just a little curious. Such a legendary figure chose to be buried here. Not everyone could have such a state of mind. As for Qin Chang'an, he still had the same temper. There was nothing to talk about between the father and the son. They had said what they wanted to say last time. Moreover, the old master knew everything about his life. After all the blessings of the Qin family gathered on him and Qin Sheng. However, there was one thing he wanted to say. That was, Old Master, Qin Sheng's path in the past 20 years was chosen by you. I have no complaints. Then, from today onwards, let me continue to lead him on his path. Chapter 382. Old House, Old Friend. Chapter 381. Old House, Old Friend, continue to ask for votes. Continue to ask for votes, everyone, please do your best. More than 20 years ago, the old master took Qin Sheng to the Zhongnan Mountains, the most blessed place in the world, alone. He even buried himself in the wilderness of this foreign land and became a lonely ghost, in order to accumulate a lifetime of good fortune for Qin Sheng in 20 years. From then on, Qin Sheng began a life of wandering from place to place for more than 20 years. During these 20 years, Qin Sheng lost a lot of things. Today, more than 20 years later, Qin Chang'an took Qin Sheng to the Zhongnan Mountains again. They ended the ceremony by paying respects to the old master and officially announced the beginning of Qin Sheng's unpredictable second half of life. The first 20 years of suffering created the glory of the second half of Qin Sheng's life. Whether it was worth it or not, no one knew. They offered incense, kowtowed, and bowed. The ceremony of paying respects to the old master ended in this simple way, without too complicated procedures. After Qin Chang'an stood up, he looked at Qin Sheng and Qin Ran and said, "You stay in Xi'an for another day. I'll go back to Beijing first. I'll ask Gongsun to pick you up at the airport tomorrow at noon." Qin Ran nodded silently and said, "Dad, take care of yourself. Drink less during the meal. Remember to take the medicine I bought for you. It's good for your health." "Got it." Qin Chang'an smiled with relief. Qin Sheng nodded slightly to Qin Chang'an and watched Qin Chang'an and Gongsun leave slowly. He planned to stay for a while longer to clean up the withered grass on his grandfather's grave. After Qin Chang'an and Gongsun left, only Qin Sheng and Qin Ran were left here. Qin Ran cleaned up the weeds and dust on her clothes. Qin Sheng took off his coat and put it on the tree beside him. Then he squatted on the ground and started to work. This kind of physical work was not strange to him. When he was young, he often went to the nearby villages to help out, so that the villagers could help him when he needed help. The most famous thing here was the grapes, so Qin Sheng liked the harvest time the most. He could go to the garden to pick grapes and eat until he was full. Staring at the lonely grave, Qin Ran still had some ideas and asked subconsciously, "Qin Sheng, what do you think of grandfather's life?" His sister's words made Qin Sheng fall into deep thought. How should he evaluate his grandfather's life? He did not know who could comment on his grandfather, but he remembered what the old Taoist priest of Lu Guantai had said when he saw his grandfather off. Hence, Qin Sheng said slowly, Taoist priest Ren of Lu Guantai once said that some people never live for themselves in their whole life. To this world, they are just a group of passers-by in a hurry. They do not want to leave any traces, and they do not want to be remembered by anyone, because they live only for others. The Taoists say that this is the state of anatta. Selfless. Qin Ran pondered over his words. It seemed that it was just as he had said. Qin Sheng busied himself for half an hour and finally cleaned up his grandfather's grave. But when he just arrived, he saw that someone must have told him that there were still some incense sticks on the grave. He didn't know if it was Auntie Wang, Xin, or someone else. "Grandpa, we're leaving. We'll see you again next time." After saying goodbye to the old master, Qin Sheng left with Qin Ran. The car was still waiting for them by the roadside. It was the staff of the Shi and branch of the Qin family. After getting in the car, Qin Shing planned to take Qin Ran to have a meal first. He wanted to taste the delicacies of Xi'an. To be exact, he was greedy. At this time, eating a bowl of mutton stew was the most comfortable thing. Qin Shing, where did you live with Grandpa when you were young? Or did you all live in the Lin's house? Qin Ran asked casually. She wanted to know more about Qin Shing's childhood. Qin Shing said with interest, in the beginning, Grandpa and I lived nearby. Later, after I went to school, I lived in the Lin's house on weekdays. On weekends or holidays, I came back to live with Grandpa. Since Grandpa took me to Xi'an, he has never left this place for 20 years. Qin Ran was a little shocked. It seemed that she would have gone crazy if she had to stay in one place for 20 years. Qin Shing laughed and said, Sister, let's go. I'll show you the place where I lived when I was young. It's also our home. Therefore, Qin Shing let her sit in the passenger seat. He drove Qin Ran to a village not far away. Qin Ran was somewhat looking forward to it, but she was completely mentally prepared. A few minutes later, they finally arrived at the nearest village. The old house where Qin Shing and the old master lived was a courtyard in the village. It was a few hundred meters away from the settlement of the village. The old master liked quiet and did not like to be disturbed, so he chose such a place. The courtyard faced north, with the Zhongnan mountain at the back and Chang'an city at the front. There was no wall in the courtyard, but a fence made of tree stumps encircled the 3 old brick and tile houses in the middle. There was a towering tree in the courtyard, which was the most common Chinese pagoda tree in Xi'an. This Chinese pagoda tree was more than 100 years old, and now it needed 2 or 3 people to hug it. This Chinese pagoda tree had left a deep impression on Qin Shing. It was still luxuriant, but it looked a little bleak because it was winter. He remembered that in summer, the old master would sit under the tree to enjoy the cool in the evening, listening to a piece of Peking opera and playing eru, while Qin Shing would stand nearby and play. That feeling was really comfortable. After so many years, after the old master passed away, Qin Shing had never returned to this place. The yard had long been dilapidated, with weeds growing everywhere. There were also many shabby things. Presumably, it had become the first choice for the children in the village to play hide and seek. This is the place where you lived with Grandpa when you were young? Qin Ran was a little shocked. She had thought that the place where Qin Shing and Grandpa lived might not be good, but she did not expect that the conditions would be so harsh. She had never been to such a place in her life, let alone live in such a place. Qin Shing laughed and said, Yes, this is my childhood. Qin Ran hugged Qin Shing again and said, Brother, how much hardship did you suffer when you were young? I really feel sorry for you. Qin Shing did not know whether to laugh or cry. Sister, you're here again. That's all in the past. I'm fine now. What's more, this place is very good. You haven't been to more remote places. It was good enough for me to have a place to live when I was young. Those places are the real hardship. Well, I will make up for the hardships you suffered before, Qin Ran said firmly, which made Qin Shing feel a little embarrassed. This sister really loved him so much. Let's go, I will show you around. Qin Shing took Qin Ran's hand and walked in. The car was parked at the door, and the driver was waiting for them in the car. Although the walls of the courtyard were made of tree stumps and fences, the 2 doors of the courtyard were made of pine wood and locked with a lock. Qin Shing's key was left in the bedroom of the Lin family. It seemed that he had no idea what to do with it, but this was not a problem for Qin Shing. He randomly picked up a brick from the ground and smashed the lock with it in front of Qin Ran's shocked eyes. Let's go. Qin Shing shrugged at his sister, as if he had done a big thing. He was a little proud. After walking into the courtyard, Qin Shing used a wooden stick to open a path in front of them. Qin Ran followed closely behind him. Qin Shing, who was in a good mood, pointed here and there to introduce the old house to Qin Ran. However, the things left in the old house were not valuable. Many of his grandfather's things were left in the hands of the old Taoist priest in Luguantai, such as the valuable Eru and Guqin. After walking for a while, Qin Shing felt bored and was ready to leave with Qin Ran. At this time, a car passed by the courtyard. Seeing Qin Ran and Qin Shing inside, the young man who was driving the car rolled down the window and shouted at them, "What are you doing?" After that, the young man stopped the car and ran over angrily. He was a little surprised to see the Benz parked at the door. He did not know where this rich man came from and came here to have fun. "What are you doing here?" the young man, who looked very formidable, asked. For the villagers, although this courtyard had been abandoned long ago, they had deep feelings for the old man and the children who lived in the courtyard. Especially the old man, who had helped the village to do a few big things. Therefore, the villagers were very grateful to the old man and had been spontaneously guarding this courtyard. Although the old man had passed away, his grandson was still alive. It was just that he had not come back for so many years. Qin Ran was a little worried. She did not know what the young man in front of her wanted to do. Qin Shing did not care at all. He said with a smile, "Huzi, it's only been a few years. Don't you recognize me?" The young man, who was called Huzi by Qin Shing, was stunned. Then he took a few steps forward and recognized the man in front of him. He did not expect that it would be Qin Shing. Huzi's expression turned into surprise in an instant. Then he rushed to Qin Shing, hugged his shoulder and said, "What the f***ck, Qin Shing, it's you. What the f***ck, it's so f***king unexpected. Why did you come back?" Huzi was full of vulgarities, which made Qin Ran a little uncomfortable. However, she could hear the surprise and affection in his words. Qin Shing punched Huzi and said, "This is my home. Why the f***ck can't I come back?" Huzi was even more excited as he said, "F***ck, you still know this is your home. How many years has it been since Grandpa Qin passed away? Where the f***ck have you been? We all thought you f***king died." Qin Shing often fought with them when he was a child. He was used to this way of talking. After all, they were all born and raised in the village. Although their words were mostly vulgar, they expressed the most sincere feelings. Qin Shing replied, "F***ck, I won't die even if you die." Hearing this, Huzi laughed out loud. Then he noticed the extremely beautiful woman beside him. He was so nervous that he stuttered, This beauty, who is she? Your girlfriend?" Qin Shing punched Huzi again and said, "F***ck off. This is my biological sister." Huzi scratched his head a little embarrassedly and said, "Hello, sister, hello. I'm sorry, I'm a rude person. Please don't take it to heart. Hello." Since this was Qin Shing's friend, Qin Ran didn't reject him and responded politely. At this time, Huzi said, "Let's go. Don't stand here. Let's go to my home and have a good talk. I guess everyone doesn't know that you're back. You don't know how much they miss you." Qin Shing looked at Qin Ran and said somewhat embarrassedly, "Huzi, another day. We still have something to deal with today." "Another day? Go. Who knows when we can see each other again after you leave? It's the Spring Festival. Even if you have something to do, you don't have to wait for a while. It's the Spring Festival. Everyone is back. It's rare that everyone is here." Huzi didn't give up and insisted. Qin Ran smiled faintly and said, "Qin Shing, I'd better meet my old friends. I don't know when we can see each other again." Qin Shing was lost in thought. It seemed that, as his sister said, he really didn't know when he could come back again. He also wanted to know how these childhood playmates were doing now. Consequently, Qin Shing and Qin Ran followed Huzi to a village not far away. Huzi drove in the front, and the driver followed behind them in a Mercedes-Benz. Along the way, Huzi kept talking on the phone. If Qin Ran heard the way he talked, she would definitely laugh out loud. Qin Shing had been used to this kind of environment since he was a child. Chapter 383. Chapter 382. Can't forget our roots. Please continue to ask for vote. Please support me. When Qin Sheng was in college in Shanghai, he would go back to Zhongnan Mountains to visit his grandfather every time he came back from winter and summer vacations. He would stay with his grandfather for 2 days before going to the Lin family. At that time, he would go wherever his grandfather was. Although Zhongnan Mountains was not Qin Sheng's hometown, Qin Sheng still had a lot of feelings for this place. Moreover, his friends in Xi'an were only his childhood friends in this small village, except for his best friends in junior high school. This village was neither too big nor too small, with only about 100 households. However, this village, which was backed by Mount Zhongnan and close to Xi'an, was not poor. Every household had a beautiful 2-story building, and some even had extravagant villas. Not to mention that many people in the village were doing business or serving as officials in Xi'an City. Many people had become rich by opening a farmhouse at the foot of the mountain. After all, every summer, Mount Zhongnan would be overcrowded. In the remaining years, they had become rich by relying on grapes and special agriculture. Therefore, as the spring festival was approaching, cars of different grades were parked in front of every household in the village, and the doorways were decorated very beautifully. With Huzi's enthusiastic promotion, the news of Qin Sheng's return spread like wildfire. Everyone was curious about what Qin Sheng had become after disappearing for so many years. Was he glorious or down? After all, Qin Sheng was a famous person in the village, and could be said to be the king of children. Therefore, before they arrived at Huzi's house, many villagers and childhood friends had gathered at the door. After Huzi parked the car, a villager asked, "Huzi, didn't you say that Qin Sheng is back? Where is he? Don't lie to us." Huzi pointed at the Mercedes-Benz behind them and shouted confidently, "Third uncle, why are you in such a hurry? Your 2 daughters are married, and you still want Qin Sheng to be your live-in son-in-law. It has been so many years. You little brat, you've grown up. You even dare to laugh at me." The simple and honest man called third uncle laughed out loud, revealing his yellow teeth. However, he was not angry. This was how it was in the village. People always liked to make fun of each other. When they had nothing to do, they liked to gather together and gossip about each other. Another young man of the same age asked, "Huzi, ignore your third uncle. Tell us about Qin Sheng. I haven't seen him for many years. I was beaten by him when I was a kid." At this time, the chauffeur of the Qin family drove the Mercedes-Benz to the door of Huzi's house. Huzi pointed at the Mercedes-Benz and said, "This is it. Take a look. Qin Sheng is doing well now. He has bought a Mercedes-Benz and hired a full-time chauffeur." After hearing Huzi's words, everyone subconsciously looked at the Mercedes-Benz behind them. The expressions on everyone's faces were different. Some were surprised, some were confused, some were envious, and some were jealous. However, everyone surrounded Qin Sheng without hesitation. They all wanted to see what Qin Sheng looked like now. Seeing so many people, Qin Ran could not help but say, "Tut tut, so many people. Qin Sheng, I didn't expect you to be so popular in the village." It did not occur to Qin Sheng that so many people would come. He said proudly, "What do you think? When I was a child, I was the most handsome man in our village. People often asked my grandfather to arrange a marriage for me when I was a child." Qin Ran covered her mouth and giggled. Of course, she would not believe his words. She knew that he was joking. "Oh, how did I know that my brother is good at bragging?" But now she liked chatting with Qin Sheng. It seemed to be a normal way of getting along with a brother and a sister. After the car stopped, Qin Sheng and Qin Ran got out of the car slowly. Both of them had seen the world, especially Qin Ran. She had been to all kinds of places and occasions. Of course, she would not be frightened by the scene in front of her. As soon as Qin Sheng got out of the car, some villagers recognized him. They turned around and shouted excitedly, "It's Qin Sheng! It's Qin Sheng! It's really Qin Sheng!" Others also recognized Qin Sheng. After all, Qin Sheng had only left for 4 or 5 years. His appearance would not change much. Everyone rushed to say hello to Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng, who just got out of the car, was overwhelmed. He felt like he was a star. Qin Sheng was very familiar with these villagers. He could recognize each and every one of them, which made him feel quite close to them, as if he had found his childhood memories. Consequently, he hurriedly greeted everyone and said, "Third uncle, fourth aunt, sixth brother, Uncle Li, Uncle Wang, your legs have recovered." For a moment, the scene at the gate was extremely lively. It seemed that someone was getting married. Every villager's face was full of warm smiles. At this time, Qin Ran had also gotten out of the car. Many villagers instantly shifted their attention to Qin Ran. They had never seen such a beautiful woman with such temperament. They were immediately stunned by Qin Ran. They looked at Qin Ran with different expressions. Many people were whispering to each other. Some people directly shouted, "Qin Sheng, you brought your girlfriend back. You are so promising. Your girlfriend is so beautiful." Being regarded as Qin Sheng's girlfriend again, Qin Ran lowered her head and smiled bitterly. Huzi hurriedly explained for Qin Sheng. "Don't talk nonsense. This beauty is not Qin Sheng's girlfriend. She is his sister." Then everyone understood. But most of them did not believe Huzi's words. After all, everyone knew that Qin Sheng did not have a sister. It was probably a cover. "All right, all of you make way. Don't crowd around. It's very cold outside. Let Qin Sheng and the guests into the house first. Let's talk inside." Huzi's father and mother were also in the crowd. They shouted to the crowd. It seemed that Qin Sheng coming to their house was their relatives and distinguished guest, which made them extremely proud. Then they came to their senses and welcomed Qin Sheng and Qin Ran into Huzi's house. The whole house was crowded with villagers in an instant. Many villagers were on their way. Therefore, Qin Sheng and Qin Ran, who wanted to go back to the city, could not leave. Endless villagers and childhood friends rushed over. Everyone excitedly greeted Qin Sheng, and then began to talk about the old days. Some people praised Qin Sheng for being promising. People who came from a key university were really different. Some people asked where Qin Sheng had been these years, and why there was no news about him. It seemed that he had disappeared. Some people asked where Qin Sheng was now and what kind of business he was doing. Some people asked if Qin Sheng had a girlfriend and if he was married. Of course, some people said sarcastically. After all, there were all kinds of people in the village, especially those who were not convinced by Qin Sheng at the beginning and now thought they were more promising than Qin Sheng. Anyway, there were all kinds of topics. Everyone had different starting points. Qin Sheng had lived in such an environment since he was a child, so he naturally knew how to deal with these people. Qin Ran was more popular than Qin Sheng. After all, beautiful women were treated like this everywhere. She chatted with the villagers tirelessly and asked about the interesting things of Qin Sheng's childhood. This was the fastest way for her to know about Qin Sheng's childhood. Since the beauty was interested in these things, the villagers also talked to her tirelessly. If they could make this beauty smile, they could wake up from their dreams with a smile. In this way, Qin Sheng and Qin Ran stayed in Huzi's house for 3 hours. When they felt it was almost time, they stood up and said goodbye to the villagers, ready to leave. After all, they would go back to Beijing tomorrow morning, and had more important things to do. They hadn't seen Qin Sheng for many years, so they had endless things to say and questions to ask. Qin Sheng was leaving as soon as he came back. Of course, they were reluctant to let him go. Some people said, "The spring festival is coming soon. You haven't spent the spring festival in the village for many years. Why don't you leave after the spring festival?" Some childhood friends said, "Qin Sheng, it's rare for you to come back. All the brothers in the village are also back. We will hold a welcome dinner for you in the evening." The villagers were kind, and Qin Sheng understood that. But he really had to leave. He couldn't leave too little time for Auntie Wang and Qin. So he could only explain to them patiently, and Qin Ran echoed by his side. Qin could also feel that some people's attitudes had changed. It seemed that they didn't take the villagers seriously now that he had become successful. Qin didn't bother to explain so much. Seeing that Qin was determined to leave, Huzi's parents could only settle for the next best thing. They said that even if he wanted to leave, he should have dinner first. To be honest, Qin really wanted to stay and have a good chat with them. But this time he didn't have much time, so he had to politely refuse the kindness of Huzi's parents again. Seeing this, the villagers didn't continue to persuade them to stay. They stood up and saw Qin and Qin ran out of the door, more or less disappointed. At the door, Qin pulled Huzi and said, "Huzi, I really have something to do this time. I hope you can understand. It's not that I'm arrogant or look down on others. If nothing goes wrong, I will stay in Xi'an for some time next year. At that time, I will have a good chat with you." It's okay. They can understand. For those who don't understand, don't lower yourself to their level. Huzi was very considerate and said. Qin patted Huzi's shoulder with great relief and said, "Huzi, I've left my phone number for you. So remember that I came from a village and grew up eating the food of hundreds of families. No matter where I go, no matter what I do, and no matter how great my achievements are, I will never forget my root. So if anything big happens in the village, remember to inform me." "Ha, don't worry. Leave it to me." Huzi agreed with the spirit of brotherhood. Qin told Huzi a few more times and then turned around to greet the villagers. "Uncle, aunt, uncle, aunt, uncle, aunt, uncle, aunt. Qin is sorry this time. I hope you can forgive me. I will come back to see you next year." Most of the villagers waved goodbye to Qin politely, but some sneered at him. Qin didn't pay much attention to them, but Qin Ran did. Qin and Qin Ran finally got in the car. He rolled down the window and continued to wave goodbye to the villagers. It was not until the driver drove the car to the road that he stopped looking at them. He didn't plan to go back to the village, but when he came back by chance, he sighed with emotion. Those childhood friends had changed now. Some were rich, some were arrogant, some were down and out, and some were bitter. Everyone had their own life, but it was no longer the same as before. They were so carefree when they went up the mountain to catch rabbits, went down the river to catch fish, played in the mud in the field, and played hide-and-seek in the forest. Now the burden of life was on them, which had worn away their innocence. What replaced it was philistine, secular, and numb. However, this was a stage that everyone would go through, including Qin. He was no longer the little boy in the past. Qin had feelings for this place, for these villagers and his childhood friends, so he felt that his life had settled down now. If he went back to Xi'an in the future, he could go back to the village. He came from here. He couldn't let these villagers poke at his grandfather's back and say, "Look at that grandson of yours, he's really an ingrate. Now that he's capable and successful, he's even forgotten his root." Of course, the dead old master wouldn't care about these secular views, but Qin had to care. After all, his grandfather was buried here. What if someone dug up his grandfather's grave one day? Of course this was a joke. Seeing Qin in a daze, Qin Ran held his hand and comforted him. "Don't think so much. You can make everyone satisfied." She thought that Qin was uncomfortable because of the harsh words of some villagers. Qin came to his senses and smiled. "Nothing, sister. They are like that. I got used to it when I was young." "That's good." Qin Ran was relieved. Chapter 384. Seeking Death, A New Day, A New Beginning. Don't be as annoying as Old Guan. Tickets are Old Guan's motivation. Qin was very familiar with the road from Zhongnan Mountains to Zhujiang New District, but his mood was different every time. Especially recently, He felt a little guilty, because he owed the Lin family too much. Not to mention that he grew up in the Lin family, he always disappeared for no reason these years, which made Auntie Wang and the others worry a lot. They were really afraid that something bad would happen to him and he would never be heard from again. Sometimes Qin Xing felt that he was very selfish. Sometimes he only cared about his own feelings and never thought about others, which was why he always reflected on himself recently. For example, Auntie Wang. After the Lin family fell, Uncle Lin staggered into prison. How much pressure did Auntie Wang bear? Xinxin was studying in Shanghai and he disappeared. Only Auntie Wang lived alone in Xi'an. For a woman, how hard was such a life? Uncle Lin was gone, and he was the only man in the Lin family. At this time, he should bear this heavy burden and responsibility. During the 2 years when he was away, even if he traveled according to his grandfather's last wish, he should at least keep in touch with the Lin family. In this way, when Uncle Lin had an accident, he could come back in time, instead of leaving Auntie Wang and Xinxin helpless, being bullied by those outsiders. After the accident on Mount Zhihua, he disappeared without saying a word to Auntie Wang and Xinxin. Some time ago, he had an accident, but he did not say a word to Auntie Wang and Xinxin. Every time he disappeared for no reason and reappeared for no reason. What would Auntie Wang and Xinxin think? The Lin family had long regarded him as a family member, providing him with food, clothing, education, and so on. Auntie Wang treated him as her own son and took care of him since he was a child, for fear that he would be dissatisfied. Xinxin treated him as her own brother and treated him better than anyone else. She even said everything to him, and he was also her biggest support. But what he did would make Auntie Wang and the others sad. They would think that he had never regarded them as family and was just a lodger. Therefore, after experiencing a lot of things, Qin Xing cherished this family even more. He had made up his mind that no matter what happened in the future, he would never treat Auntie Wang and Xinxin like this. At the same time, he must find a way to clear Uncle Lin's name and let the Lin family return to the past. Along the way, Qin Xing had been thinking about these things. How could he make up for what he had neglected all these years? His face was solemn and his brows were furrowed, which made Qin Ran, who was beside him, feel a little depressed. Qin Xing, what's wrong? Qin Ran asked worriedly. Qin Xing said guiltily, Sister, I feel sorry for the Lin family. They have done so much for me over the years, but I haven't repaid them. She said, Don't think so much. You're still young. You'll have plenty of opportunities to repay them in the future. Besides, you still have us. It's not enough that you can't repay them. We'll repay them for you. One day you'll be able to repay them. Qin Xing did not say anything more. He just thought about how to repay the Lin family in the future and how to make it up to them. When he arrived at the entrance of Jindi Furong Shijia, it was already past 5 o'clock. The sky was getting dark. The night view of Zhujiang New District at night was intoxicating and had become a beautiful scenery line of this city. Qin Xing asked the driver to stop the car by the roadside and told him that he could go back. He would inform him in advance when to go to the airport tomorrow. Tomorrow was New Year's Eve. Qin Xing was not sure whether Auntie Wang and Xinxin would be at home. After all, everyone would go out to buy things for the Spring Festival these days. However, he only remembered Auntie Wang's phone number. He did not remember the number that Xinxin had changed after going to Shanghai, so he could only call Auntie Wang. Qin Xing dialed Auntie Wang's phone with an uneasy mood. However, no one answered the phone several times in a row. Qin Xing was somewhat puzzled. What's wrong? No one answered the phone? Qin Ran asked with a frown. Qin Xing nodded helplessly with a bitter smile. He hesitated for a moment and said, Sister, wait in the car for a while. I'll go in and see if there's anyone at home. This was the only thing she could do now. Qin Ran had to wait for Qin Xing's news in the car. The security guard of Jindi Furong Shurjia recognized Qin Shing. After all, Qin Shing had come back several times, so he directly let Qin Shing in. After Qin Shing arrived downstairs, he pressed the access control system 3 times. However, no one answered and opened the door, which confirmed that there was no one at home. Qin Shing could only go out helplessly. He could not help but feel a little worried. What should he do? When he went out, he saw the security guard. Qin Shing asked him casually. Then he knew that Auntie Wang and Xinshin had gone out in the afternoon. The security guard had a deep impression of this beautiful mother and daughter. They had a good relationship in daily life, so he could remember them. Qin Shing went back to the car. Qin Ran knew what was going on from Qin Shing's expression. She smiled bitterly and said, "No one at home?" Qin Shing sighed and said, "No one at home. But the security guard said that Auntie Wang and Xinshin went out and haven't come back yet." Qin Ran joked. "Poor child. You have a home but can't go back." Qin Shing thought for a moment and said, "Let's wait for a while. If Xinshin and Auntie Wang don't come back in half an hour, I'll find a way to contact others and see if I can find Xinshin and Auntie Wang." "Okay. Anyway, I have nothing to do. You can tell me about them. I can chat with them later," Qin Ran said indifferently. Anyway, they would go back to Beijing tomorrow. They had enough time. In this way, Qin Shing and Qin Ran could only wait here. In less than half an hour, Qin Shing saw Auntie Wang driving the old Audi A4L back. After all, he remembered Auntie Wang's license plate very clearly. So Qin Shing finally smiled. "Sister, they are back." Qin Shing stared at the Audi A4L at the door and smiled. From Qin Shing's smile, Qin Ran could tell how deep his feelings for the Lin family were. So she said with a smile, "Let's go. Take me to meet the great benefactor of the Qin family. You always say that Sister Xinshin is a great beauty. Let me see how beautiful the great beauty you mentioned is." When Qin Shing and Qin Ran were about to get out of the car, there seemed to be a conflict at the door. It seemed that a car in front of them was blocking the entrance. The car owner was arguing with the security guard. Auntie Wang honked twice. The driver in the front was a little angry when he heard the honking. He directly turned around and walked to the front of the Audi. He slapped the hood of the Audi twice and scolded at the same time, "Damn it! Don't you have eyes? Why did you honk?" Auntie Wang was shocked. She was in a hurry to go home to cook and prepare some food for the Spring Festival. She didn't expect such a thing to happen. Auntie Wang didn't say anything and thought that it would be over soon. Since her husband's accident, she had been kind to others everywhere, which could be regarded as accumulating good karma for the Lin family. Maybe it was because she had no one to rely on that she was a little bit less confident. But Xinshin was not so easy to deal with. Her father was not by her side, and her brother had disappeared without a trace. She was the only one who could protect her mother. How could she tolerate others bullying her mother? So Xinshin directly got out of the car without saying anything. Auntie Wang called Xinshin, but she couldn't stop her. She had to get out of the car quickly. After Xinshin got out of the car, she glared at the fierce-looking man in front of her and said, "What did you just say?" Seeing that it was 2 women, the man became more unscrupulous and said, "Damn it. Didn't you see there was a car in front of you? Honk your damn horn. Are you in a hurry to be reincarnated?" Xinshin was so angry that she fought back without hesitation. "You are a grown-up. If you don't know how to talk when you go out, don't come out and embarrass your parents." The man didn't expect that the beauty in front of him would dare to talk back. Of course, he would not admit defeat. Moreover, there were 2 friends present. His face was more important than anything else. So he scolded again, "Bitch, how dare you scold me? I think you are courting death." After that, the man raised his wrist and was about to slap Xinshin. People who could live in this Zhujiang new district were all rich. What's more, this man drove a Land Rover, so of course he was more unscrupulous. Xin didn't expect that the man still wanted to hit her, but she still stood there without flinching. Auntie Wang, who was walking over, was shocked and shouted, Xin. Just when Xin had accepted her fate and the man's slap was about to touch her beautiful face intimately, the man's arm was suddenly grabbed by someone. Only a man's gloomy voice could be heard. Try saying what you just said again. Of course, the man who spoke was Qin. Originally, his face was full of a sincere smile when he saw his family. But after seeing the scene in front of him, Qin's face instantly became extremely gloomy. On the way, he told himself that he would never let anyone bully Auntie Wang and Xin in the future, let alone let them suffer any grievances. He would definitely try his best to make up for the regrets of these years. Now, someone dared to challenge his bottom line. How could Qin bear it? Auntie Wang saw Qin first and shouted in disbelief. Xing or Xin, who thought that she would be beaten, didn't expect that the man's arm would be grabbed by someone. She subconsciously looked at the initiator next to her. When she saw that it was Qin, Xin was stunned. She couldn't believe that the man in front of her was actually Qin. Her eyes turned red in an instant and she shouted aggrievedly, "Brother!" The man's arm was grabbed by someone. He didn't expect that someone would meddle in his business. Hearing Qin's arrogant words, he shouted angrily, "F***CKU. Who do you think you are?" Qin had no time to say hello to Auntie Wang and Xin, because he had to let the man in front of him remember that today would be the unluckiest day of his life. Qin narrowed his eyes and said, "You are courting death." At this moment, his eyes were full of murderous intent. Before his voice died away, Qin directly hit the man's face with a heavy punch. Then he used all his strength to kick the man's abdomen. In an instant, the man flew backward like a kite with a broken string. Then he hit the trunk of the Land Rover in front of him heavily and fell to the ground, vomiting blood. It could be seen how angry Qin was. Such a sudden change scared the onlookers. Chapter 385. Chapter 384. Don't care. Please continue to ask for vote. We have already rushed into the top 5. Come on, brothers. It was just an ordinary quarrel, but because of the aggressiveness of the Land Rover man, it became an uncontrollable situation. He was really courting death. No one had expected that someone would appear out of nowhere and kill the man with the Land Rover in an instant. It was really satisfying. The Land Rover man was too domineering because he was rich. He first quarreled with the security guard, then cursed the beauty behind him, and even wanted to beat the man. No one could stand it. If killing was not against the law, the Land Rover man would have been chopped many times. Unfortunately, in this so-called society ruled by law, justifiable defense and heroism could all be against the law. Who was willing to meddle in other people's business? Everyone was watching the show with the attitude that it was none of their business. At most, they cursed and despised the Land Rover man in their hearts. Auntie Wang and Xian did not expect that Qin would suddenly appear in front of them and protect Xian at the critical moment. Otherwise, the Spring Festival would not be peaceful. However, they still doubted whether what they saw was true. After all, they had not heard from Qin for almost 2 months, and they seemed to be used to his sudden disappearance. Qin Ran and Qin got out of the car at the same time and witnessed the whole thing. The Land Rover man was so arrogant that even Qin Ran could not stand it. Moreover, he bullied the mother and daughter of the Lin family, who made Qin feel guilty. As a hot-blooded young man, how could he bear it? At this moment, the Land Rover man was directly beaten down by Qin with 2 or 3 punches, which made Qin Ran vent her anger and shocked at the same time. She did not expect her brother to be so good at fighting. She was a little worried at first, but now she was completely relieved. She did not blame Qin for being too impulsive or making trouble, because people like the Land Rover man deserved to be beaten every time they saw him. As for the possible sequela, Qin Ran did not take it seriously at all. How could the Qin family not have this ability? What was more, tomorrow was New Year's Eve. Of course, she could not be delayed by such a trivial thing. She looked at the Land Rover's license plate and took out her mobile phone to make a call. She was not worried about Qin Shing's safety at all, nor was she worried that Qin Shing would not be able to control his strength. Her brother was very smart. She was just afraid that he would beat her up too lightly because of some taboo. After beating up the Land Rover man, the two friends of the Land Rover man came in. Both of them looked big and strong, but they were full of fat. They could scare ordinary people, but they were unlucky to run into Qin Shing. Be it in terms of speed or strength, they were no match for Qin Shing. Therefore, it became a one-sided performance for Qin Shing, who completely crushed the two seemingly tall and strong men. Amidst the exclamations of the onlookers, the two strong men grimaced in pain after being beaten by Qin Shing. In the end, they could only lie on the ground and groan in pain. Qin Shing ignored the admiration and shock of the onlookers, walked slowly to the man with the Land Rover, squatted down, and said, "Aren't you awesome?" The man with the Land Rover stared at Qin Shing with a vicious and fearful look. He was so scared that he did not dare to answer, for fear that Qin Shing would attack him again. It's not a bad thing to be low-key. Don't think that you can be unscrupulous just because you have some stinky money. Moreover, you don't look like a real rich man. At most, you are a relocated family from a village in the city, or an idiot who bought a Land Rover to show off. Qin Shing lectured the man with a disdainful look. The man resisted the pain on his body and said with difficulty, "Brother, I was wrong, and I admit it." "Really wrong? You really admit it?" "Haha, it has nothing to do with me. What do you want to do? I'll wait for you." "I'm afraid that you can't bear the consequences." Qin Shing squinted and said. At this time, Qin Ran had already made the phone call. The rest of the things would be handled by someone. Whether someone had already called the police and gone through the procedures, or both sides had settled privately, they did not need to worry about it, and there would not be any sequelae. After all, she and Qin Shing were not in Xi'an, but Auntie Wang and Xinxin were here. If something really happened, Qin Shing might feel guilty for the rest of his life. Qin Ran walked slowly to Qin Shing and said worriedly, "Are you hurt?" "Sister, your brother is not a pillow with embroidered embroidery," Qin Shing said disapprovingly, completely ignoring the grievance of the man. Qin Ran stared at Qin Shing, who was still pretending to be innocent, and did not scold him for being so impulsive in the future. She only hoped that Qin Shing could live the way he should live, and did not have to live the way others wanted him to. "Go to see Auntie Wang and Xinxin. I can handle it here." Qin Ran pulled Qin Shing up and smiled. After all, Auntie Wang and Xinxin were the most important to Qin Shing. Qin Shing looked at Qin Ran suspiciously and said, "Can you do it? Don't worry. Even if your sister can't do it, we still have our father. It's such a small thing. Don't worry that the sky in Xi'an will fall." Qin Ran laughed and did not take it seriously at all. Qin Shing nodded and turned to walk to Auntie Wang and Xinxin. Looking at Auntie Wang and Xinxin, who were standing not far away, Qin Shing had mixed feelings and was thinking about how to comfort them. After Qin Shing left, Qin Ran's face suddenly became cold. She did not have the gentleness and kindness to Qin Shing at all. She sneered and said, "No matter who you are or what your background is, I don't care, because you are not a threat to me at all. Someone should call you in 5 minutes, and they will deal with the next thing. As for who it is, if you can show your face, you will know his identity. If you don't give up and want to fight to the death, I'm sorry, you are not qualified, because the young people in Xi'an who are qualified can be counted with one hand. At that time, you will not be able to enjoy the Spring Festival." The man with the Land Rover had been in Xi'an for so many years. Although he was not a particularly rich man, he was more or less a little bit rich. His father was the head of a village in Zhejiang. His family made a lot of money by demolishing houses. Some of his relatives and friends were also famous, so he was used to being domineering. But it was the first time for him to be looked down upon by a woman like this, as if he was just an ant in front of the woman in front of him. The man with the Land Rover had mixed feelings. He did not believe what the woman in front of him said. He did not believe that he was so unlucky to meet someone he could not afford to offend. Just when he was doubting, the phone rang. The man took out the phone and saw the word Dad. His heart subconsciously trembled a little. When he answered the phone, before he could say anything, his father on the other side of the phone had already roared angrily. It was the first time for him to see his father so angry in so many years. The man with the Land Rover was instantly disheartened. He knew that he really met a powerful big shot today. He would definitely suffer this loss, and he would also have to apologize. Now it was not that he could not find trouble with Qin Shing, but that Qin Shing would not let him go. If Qin Shing really did not let him go, not to mention that he might be in trouble, even his dirty father might not be able to escape. Qin Ran smiled faintly. They were quite efficient. She should praise them later. She turned around and walked to Qin Shing. This matter would not cause any more trouble. She really did not believe that the man with the Land Rover would dare to take risks out of desperation. If so, she would admire him more or less. People were all like this. Of course, when they were rich, they would be full of confidence. They always thought that money could make the devil work the millstone, not to mention that it was not impossible to spend money to buy something. However, the law of the jungle prevailed in this society. When you met someone who was richer and more powerful than you, of course you would obediently admit defeat. After all, even if you had money, you had to be alive to spend it. Over there, Qin Shing walked to Auntie Wang and Xian and said guiltily, "Auntie Wang, Xian, I made you suffer. Are you okay?" Xian, who would always dress up prettily when she went out, shook her head hard. However, she was still in a daze and did not know how to greet Qin Shing for a while. This girl was very dependent on Qin Shing. However, Qin Shing's sudden disappearance and reappearance these few times made Xian feel very resentful. Because she was anxious, Auntie Wang, who did not put on a coat when she got off the car, had a complicated look in her eyes. "Shinger, are you okay?" Qin Shing shook his head and smiled bitterly. "Auntie, I'm fine. I made you worry for so long. I came back to see you now. I hope you can forgive me." At this time, Xian finally dared to believe that it was Qin Shing. She said aggrievedly, "Brother, can you not disappear again? Do you know how worried we were?" "No, I will never disappear again. No matter what, I will inform you," Qin Shing said firmly. At this time, Qin Ran walked over and gently put her hand on Qin Shing's shoulder. "Qin Shing, if you have anything to say, let's go back and talk. It is so cold outside. Don't let Auntie Wang and Xian catch a cold. Moreover, there are so many people watching." Auntie Wang looked at Qin Ran thoughtfully. She wanted to say something but did not know how to say it. It seemed that Qin Shing came back several times with a beautiful girl, and each one was more beautiful than the other. Miss Han Bing often contacted them, but unfortunately, she was not Qin Shing's girlfriend. The girl named Lin Su was also good, but it seemed that she disappeared at the same time as Qin Shing these days. They used to often call to ask about her. "Who is this girl today? Is she Qin Shing's new girlfriend? What about Miss Lin Su?" Thinking of Su Qin, Auntie Wang could not help but feel a headache. She did not know how to persuade Qin Shing. Everything about him was good, but he was too playful. Moreover, he was unstoppable with women. As for Xian, she had the same idea as Auntie Wang. However, every time a new woman appeared around Qin Shing, Xian subconsciously held a hostile attitude. It was the same this time. She squinted her eyes and stared at Qin Ran unkindly. "Sister, is everything okay?" Qin Shing asked thoughtfully. If there was any trouble, he would find a way to solve it. He could contact Lao Chong and Hao Lei and kill the danger in the cradle. However, compared with that trouble, Zhuang Zhou and Nangong of the Qin family were more suitable. Qin Ran said with a faint smile, "It's okay. Don't worry. He doesn't have the guts to do anything else. They will also keep an eye on him. Then I'll be fine." Qin Xing was relieved. Hearing Qin Xing call the beautiful girl in front of her sister, Auntie Wang asked tentatively, "Xing'er, this is?" Qin Xing took Qin Ran's arm and introduced her seriously. "Auntie Wang, Xin, this is my sister, my biological sister." Qin Ran hurriedly greeted them sincerely. "Auntie Wang, Xin, nice to meet you. My name is Qin Ran, Qin Sheng's biological sister. Thank you for taking care of Qin Sheng these years." This news shocked Auntie Wang and Xin. Qin Sheng's biological sister? Qin Sheng had lived with old Master Qin and the Lin family since he was a child. How could they not know that he had a biological sister? Qin Sheng knew that they must be puzzled. He smiled and said, "Auntie Xin, if you have any questions, I will explain to you when we get home." Auntie Wang and Xin looked at each other. There were too many questions in their hearts, but they could only ask when they got home. Qin Sheng said to them, "You get in the car first. We will follow you." Xin pointed at the Land Rover man and his two friends who had already stood up. "What about them?" Qin Sheng said in a low voice, "Don't worry. We have taken care of it." The Land Rover man and his friends had been staring at Qin Sheng and the others. After hesitating for a long time, they finally walked over uneasily, ready to bow their heads and apologize to Qin Sheng and the others. Qin Ran narrowed her eyes and sneered. "If you want to apologize, we don't need it. As for whether I will take revenge on you or not, someone will talk to you. If you still have eyes, move the car away. Don't block the road. When the police come, I don't need to teach you how to explain." The Land Rover man ignored the blood on his face and almost burst into tears of joy. He smiled comically and said, "Madam, we were wrong. Thank you for forgiving us. I will move the car away now. Don't worry, I will take care of the other things. I will not let you trouble." Qin Ran ignored them. She turned around and walked to the place where they parked the car with Qin Sheng. At this time, Auntie Wang had also got in the car. The Land Rover man quickly drove the car into the community and gave way. Chapter 386. Chapter 385. Pay the price, keep going. Our goal is to be in the top 3. Work hard. Different people had different destinies, but as long as they lived in this world, it was not a bad thing to be low-key and kind to others. Those who seemed to have suffered losses would eventually be rewarded. Those who were unscrupulous and evil would eventually get their retribution. The owner of the Land Rover was lucky to have met Qin Sheng and Qin Ran today. After all, Qin Sheng and Qin Ran were not the kind of domineering rich playboys. If they had met the kind of people who were more evil than them, they might not have been able to accept the result. What was more, Qin Sheng and Qin Ran were in a special situation today. After all, tomorrow was New Year's Eve, and they would leave Xi'an. They did not want to spend much time with Auntie Wang and Xinxin. As for how the person Qin Ran called would deal with the aftermath, it was another matter. After the two cars stopped downstairs of the Lin family, Auntie Wang and Xinxin quickly got out of the car. First, they moved the New Year's goods out of the car. Qin Ran and Qin Sheng also moved the gifts prepared by the Qin family from the trunk. In the blink of an eye, the door was full of things. Qin Sheng laughed and said, "Auntie, how many things did you buy? We have to buy some gifts when we visit relatives during the New Year. Xinxin just came back to Xi'an the day before yesterday. We just had time to buy these things today." Auntie Wang explained with a smile. She had been nagging about where Qin Sheng would spend the Spring Festival this year. He had not come back for several years, which made her very worried. Qin Shing stared at Xin and said, "Girl, why did you come back so late? Did you have a boyfriend? I have been waiting for you in Hangzhou." Xin pouted and said discontentedly. Her eyes were full of resentment towards Qin Shing. She first called Qin Shing and wanted to go to Hangzhou for a few days, but she could not get in touch with him. Then she called Sister Lin, but there was no news. Finally, she called Hao Lei and learned that Qin Shing was in trouble. But Hao Lei would not tell her. Xin had no choice but to go to Hangzhou to find Han Bing. She waited for Qin Shing until there was no hope and then returned to Xi'an. Qin Shing touched Xin's hair and said, "Girl, I am sorry." At this time, Qin Ran also put away the things. Auntie Wang was embarrassed and said, "What are you doing? Why did you bring so many things back? Don't you find it troublesome?" Qin Ran explained with a smile, "Auntie Wang, it's no trouble at all. These are our family's gifts to you. Compared to the care you've given him over the years, these are really nothing. If it weren't for so many things before the Spring Festival, my father would definitely come to visit you. So he can only come to Xi'an after the Spring Festival." Hearing this, Auntie Wang didn't know how to respond. She was a little happy but also a little disappointed. She could only say that she should go home first. The few of them took some things and finally moved all the big and small bags upstairs. Of course, Qin Shing, the coolie, took the most. After returning to Lin's house, Qin Shing felt a sense of familiarity. He lay on the sofa casually and sighed, "Home is still the best." The whole house had been cleaned up. The living room and dining room were decorated with festive decorations. The windows were also pasted with the word "Fu" and paper cuts. There were also a few small lanterns hanging on the balcony. Qin Shing hadn't been home for the Spring Festival for several years. This familiar feeling was very comfortable to him, so he said this sentence sincerely. However, Qin Ran, Auntie Wang, and Xin had different feelings when they heard this sentence. Auntie Wang and Xin, of course, felt gratified. After all, they loved Qin Shing so much and had been together for more than 20 years. Qin Ran felt a little emotional, because she could see that during the time when Qin Shing was in Beijing, he had never regarded the Sihiyuan as his home. It seemed that he was just a guest. But after returning to Lin's house, his feelings were natural. However, Qin Ran was not disappointed. After all, Qin Shing had just returned to Qin's house. Everything had to be done slowly. After putting down the things, Auntie Wang enthusiastically took out the Spring Festival goods, such as fruits and melon seeds, and so on. Xin also poured tea for Qin Shing and Qin Ran. Qin Ran was a guest, so she only needed to say a few polite words. But Qin Shing was the host, so he dared not to be arrogant and hurried to help Auntie Wang. After doing these things, the family finally sat down and could have a good chat. Auntie Wang and Xin stared at Qin Shing and Qin Ran, but they didn't know where to start. Qin Shing was a little amused and said, "Auntie, ask whatever you want to ask. I know you have a lot of questions and I will explain to you." Auntie Wang asked carefully, "Xing, are you really brother and sister?" Qin Shing looked at his sister and said with a smile, "Yes, we are brother and sister. Auntie, you must be very curious. When I was a child, my grandfather and I depended on each other. You have never heard of my family. You always thought I was just an orphan. How come I suddenly have a sister? Not to mention you, when I knew the truth, I didn't expect it at all. But it is the truth, and I have no choice but to believe it. Later, I found out that it was related to some old grievances of my family. I was born in Beijing, and my family is also from Beijing for generations. But when I was a child, something happened to my family, so my grandfather took me to Xi'an to seek refuge. These years, he has never told me about his family, even when he died. It seems that he wants to completely forget the past. However, my family has been looking for me these years, and it was not until they found me a few days ago that we met." "I see. No wonder you have a sister. At first, I thought she was your new girlfriend. After Auntie Wang heard that, she finally understood and said casually. But after saying that, she realized that something was wrong. That's the case. Sure enough, Qin Ran smiled and said, Auntie Wang, how many girlfriends does Qin Xing have? Auntie Wang looked at Qin Xing and felt a little embarrassed. She didn't know how to answer. She meant to say, don't blame me, I didn't mean it. Xian didn't take it seriously and said innocently, Sister, you have to ask him. Qin Ran had never asked Qin Xing about these things. She only knew that Qin Xing's current girlfriend was Lin Su. She also knew that Qin Xing had relationships with several other women. However, she did not know the specifics. Therefore, Qin Ran followed this topic and stared at Qin Xing with a playful look. Qin Xing quickly joked, Sister, let's not talk about this now. Auntie Wang also helped him out. Xing have you been in Beijing these days? Will you settle down in Beijing in the future? Qin Xing explained, Yes, I've been in Beijing these days, but I don't know what will happen in the future. I haven't decided yet. Xian stared at Qin Xing and said, Then why did you suddenly disappear without telling us? I asked Brother Lei, but he didn't tell me. Qin Xing sighed and said, Some things happened some time ago. I had to leave Hangzhou, and so did Lao Chang and Hao Lei. If I hadn't found my family, I might still be homeless now. Otherwise, I would have been in big trouble. As I said just now, I thought I was an orphan, but I didn't expect that I had a family. So I had to accept many things slowly. That's why I came back today. Auntie Wang pulled Xian and said, Xian, don't blame your brother. It's not easy for him outside. Many things are not what you think. Qin Xing was touched by Auntie Wang's words. Xian also whispered, Mom, I know you love him the most. I just said it casually. Of course, I know it's not easy for him these years. In order not to make Qin Ran feel too embarrassed, Auntie Wang looked at Qin Ran and was ready to ask some questions. But she didn't know how to call Qin Ran. Qin Ran, who was smart, immediately smiled and said, Auntie Wang, you can call me Ran Ran. From now on, we are a family. I will treat you the same way as Qin Xing treats you. You are my aunt and Xian is my sister. As Qin Ran said, Qin Xing owed the Lin family a favor, and he couldn't pay it back in a short time. She would help him pay it back. Sister, except for Sister Lin Su, you are the most beautiful woman I have ever seen. Xian, who was eccentric, knew how to respond and said with a smile. Qin Xing deliberately said, It seems that you have said this to a lot of people. What did you say? Xian said angrily. Qin Xing hurriedly looked up at the ceiling and said, Hey, what happened? I don't know. Qin Ran didn't know whether to laugh or cry. But she could see how harmonious the relationship between Qin Xing and Xian was. Obviously, at present, even she couldn't compare with them. In the future, she had to make good use of Xian. She could learn about Qin Xing's past from her. Auntie Wang ignored their quarrel and continued to ask, Ran, who else in your family? Qin Ran would tell Auntie Wang these things about the Qin family without reservation, because she knew that Auntie Wang must be worried about Qin Xing's situation when he returned to the Qin family. Otherwise, how could she rest assured? Auntie Wang, you must know about my grandfather, so I won't say it. My father is doing business in Beijing, and he has some achievement. But he is just a businessman full of money. Qin Ran began to introduce the situation of the Qin family. Qin Chang'an also heard it. He really felt sorry for himself for 3 seconds. This daughter really didn't like him. Qin Ran continued to say, My mother passed away when Qin Xing and I were young. That's why my grandfather took Qin Xing away. Hearing this, Auntie Wang and Xian inevitably felt a little shocked, and also felt sorry for Qin Ran and Qin Xing. I also have an uncle who used to work in the government department. Later, he became a monk. My aunt went to Canada and hasn't come back these years. As for my mother's family, my grandfather passed away a few years ago. My grandmother is in good health. I have an uncle and a small aunt. My uncle is in the army, and my small aunt got married and moved to Shanghai. She has been taking care of my grandmother, Qin Ran said honestly. Although it was just a simple introduction, others would subconsciously understand that this big family was not simple. It sounds quite complicated. Auntie Wang smiled bitterly, but she could understand. After all, they had lived in Beijing for generations, which was not a simple place. Qin Ran was afraid that Auntie Wang would think too much, so she continued to say, "In fact, they are all good people. They have been thinking about Qin Sheng these years. So Auntie Wang, you can rest assured that Qin Sheng will not be bullied when he goes back. If you are worried, you can go to Beijing later." "It's not that I am worried. I just feel that this child has suffered for so many years," Auntie Wang said with some distress, but she felt that it would ruin the atmosphere, so she didn't continue. Xin hurriedly changed the topic. "Brother, are you going back to Beijing? I haven't celebrated the Spring Festival with you for several years. You still owe me a lot of money." Speaking of this topic, Qin Sheng didn't know how to say it. He gritted his teeth and said, "Auntie Xin, I may not be able to celebrate the Spring Festival with you this year. We have to go back to Beijing tomorrow morning. But I may come back immediately after the Spring Festival, because it's time to solve Uncle Lin's problem." Originally, Auntie Wang and Xin were full of disappointment when they heard that Qin Sheng would go back to Beijing tomorrow and would not celebrate the Spring Festival with the Lin family this year. But they were instantly attracted by Qin Sheng's words. "Brother, what do you mean?" Xin asked subconsciously. Chapter 387. Looking down on, the second update is here. Keep it up. I hope you can keep voting. In fact, after Qin Sheng was brought to Xi'an by Old Master, his life was quite smooth. He didn't encounter any major setbacks, just some small ones, including the years when he was studying in Shanghai. It seemed that God was taking care of him. However, ever since the Old Master passed away, Qin Sheng's life had completely changed. Whether it was the years when he traveled abroad or the 2 years when he returned to his normal life from Shanghai to Beijing, nothing had gone smoothly. He had been bullied by all kinds of demons and ghosts all the time, so he had been holding back a lot of resentment. Now, Qin Sheng finally had the strength to face these demons and ghosts. Of course, he would not be as patient and sullen as he had been in the past. He would also not consider kowtowing to Yan Chaozong and admitting his mistake like last time. This could be seen from what happened today. He vented his anger. If Qin Ran hadn't called to solve the problem fundamentally, and the other side had admitted their mistakes quickly, Qin Sheng wouldn't have ended like this. As for what happened to Uncle Lin, Qin Chang'an completely understood what Qin Chang'an said at the dinner table that day. If he wasn't absolutely sure, Qin Chang'an wouldn't have told him not to worry about it. Therefore, at this moment, Qin Sheng could say these words to Auntie Wang and Xin with full confidence. Because Uncle Lin's case was really too aggrieved. He was colluded with people from both inside and outside, and he was pressured by a big shot in the government. His company went bankrupt and was annexed, and he staggered into prison. If it were not for the help of his old friend, his family would have been ruined. Now, Qin Sheng had to avenge the Lin family. No matter what reason Qin Sheng had for saying this, Auntie Wang and Xin would feel relieved after hearing it. However, they didn't know what kind of background Qin Sheng had. Moreover, for them, what happened in the past was the worst. Therefore, they were afraid that Qin Sheng would do something stupid and offend those people again. Auntie Wang hurriedly said, "Shinger, let bygones be bygones. I know you want to save your Uncle Lin, but we can't afford to offend those people. Let's wait for your Uncle Lin to come out." "Brother, my mother is right. Don't cause trouble anymore. I know you're doing this for our own good, but you've been in so much trouble. We don't want anything to happen to you again. We just hope that you're safe and sound, Xian said in a hurry. That was because they had always been worried about Qin Shing. Every time, they were afraid that Qin Shing would really die and their world would collapse. The more Auntie Wang and Xinxin worried about him, the more guilty he felt. He forced a smile and said, Auntie Xinxin, don't worry. I'm not the Qin Shing I used to be. I won't let anyone bully you in the future. Qin Ran also heard Auntie Wang and Xinxin's words. She knew how much they cared about Qin Shing. If the Qin family couldn't do anything about it, she didn't know when they would be able to return the favor. Therefore, Qin Ran timely said, Auntie Wang, Xinxin, Qin Shing is right. It's time to solve Uncle Lin's problem. To be honest, few people in Xi and are willing to offend those people, but our Qin family really doesn't care about them. What's more, the tycoon behind them has been imprisoned this year. I guess they can't even protect themselves. What's more, the one in charge of the province has a good relationship with our Qin family, and the one in charge of the city has the same bloodline as my uncle's husband. So it's not difficult to solve these problems. Moreover, if they really dare to go to Siju City to make connections, I really don't know who will dare to take this hot potato. After all, no one is willing to offend our Qin family for such a small thing, and they don't have that kind of connections. Qin Ran's words were not on behalf of herself, but on behalf of the Qin family. At the same time, she was also endorsing Qin Shing. She wanted Auntie Wang and Xinxin to believe that Qin Shing believed that the Qin family could help the Lin family vent their anger. Moreover, Qin Ran's words were overbearing, and the information in her words was so powerful. Not to mention Auntie Wang and Xinxin, who had already realized that the Qin family was not simple, anyone who heard it would be extremely shocked. What Qin Ran said was right. The one in charge of the province was from Tsinghua University, and the relationship between the Qin family and Tsinghua University was obvious. The one in charge of the city was from Zhujiang. Not to mention the relationship between the Qin family and Tsinghua University, Qin Ran's uncle, who was now very popular in his official career, was from Zhujiang a few years ago. What's more, Qin Shing's brother in Cheongsam was also from Zhujiang. Qin Shing continued to say, Auntie Xinxin, my sister is right. The Qin family has the ability to solve Uncle Lin's problem. You don't have to worry about it anymore. I'll come back after the Spring Festival. Please tell Uncle Lin that I won't have time to see him this time. I hope he won't feel uncomfortable. Auntie Wang and Xinxin were so excited that they didn't know what to say. They instantly burst into tears of joy. They didn't expect Qin Shing's family to be so powerful. They thought they had to wait for another 10 years, but now there was finally a turning point. Qin Shing held Auntie Wang's and Xinxin's hands and said bitterly, Auntie Xinxin, don't cry during the Spring Festival. If you cry like this, I'll feel even worse. Auntie Wang wiped her tears with a smile and said, I don't cry. I'm just happy. By the way, have you had dinner? Auntie, my sister and I haven't even had lunch yet, Qin Shing said with a sad face. In front of Auntie Wang, Qin Shing would not lie. He was really hungry at this time. He could bear it, but his sister had to suffer. He had planned to go back to the city to have lunch after going to his grandfather's grave. After that, he would take his sister to see Auntie Wang, but he didn't expect that he would be dragged to the village, which wasted too much time. Hearing this, Auntie Wang said in a hurry, You haven't had lunch yet. Why didn't you tell me earlier? I'm going to cook for you now. Many things are ready-made and will be ready soon. Wait a minute. After that, she ignored Qin Ran's persuasion and ran to the kitchen with Xinxin. The mother and daughter were really happy today. There were so many happy things that they couldn't express their inner excitement in words. After Auntie Wang and Xinxin left, Qin Ran didn't rush to help them. Instead, she said, I can see that they really treat you as a family member. I was worried about how you spent these years in the Lin family, but now I don't worry about it at all. Qin Shing knew what his sister meant. The reason why he insisted on seeing Auntie Wang and Xin was that he wanted to confirm something. So Qin Shing joked, "Sister, are you jealous?" "You won't believe me if I say I'm not jealous," Qin Ran said coquettishly. In front of Qin Shing, she was the real Qin Ran, far less arrogant than she was outside. Qin Shing stood up proudly and said, "Well, sister, you'll be the closest person to me in the future, so you won't be jealous anymore. Let's go, I'll show you around my room. There are a lot of childhood memories in it." Hearing this, Qin Ran was satisfied and followed Qin Shing to the bedroom inside. Auntie Wang and Xin were cooking in the kitchen, while Qin Shing and his sister were reminiscing about his youth in the bedroom. The room was full of laughter. It didn't take long for the dinner to be ready. When eating, Qin Shing smiled like a child and said, "Auntie, the food you cook is the best. I'm afraid I'm going to eat too much today." Auntie Wang laughed and said, "Then eat more." At this time, Qin Ran said thoughtfully, "Auntie Wang, Xin, if you want, you can go back to Beijing with us to celebrate the Spring Festival tomorrow. It'll be more lively." Hearing Qin Ran's sister's words, Xin looked forward to it. In this way, she could finally celebrate the Spring Festival with her brother. But of course, she couldn't make the decision, and it was her mother who made the decision. Auntie Wang smiled faintly and refused in a euphemistic way. "Forget it this time. I've prepared so many dishes. If you don't eat them, they will all be wasted. If there is a chance in the future, our family of 3 will come to visit you again." Hearing the words, "family of 3, Qin Shing understood what she meant. Auntie Wang didn't want Uncle Lin to be alone in Xi'an during the Spring Festival. Although they couldn't celebrate the Spring Festival together, as long as they were in Xi'an, their hearts would be together, and this was their home. After dinner, Qin Ran chatted with Auntie Wang and Xin in the living room. Although Auntie Wang tried to invite Qin Ran to stay at home, she and Xin slept in the master bedroom, so that Xin's room could be vacated for Qin Ran. But for so many years, Qin Ran had never been used to living in other people's homes. Except for her grandmother, uncle, and aunt's home, she always stayed in a hotel when she went out, so she refused politely. But the hotel was not far away. It was the nearest Hyatt Regency, which was only a 10-minute walk. At this time, Qin Shing called Xin over and asked in a low voice, "Xin, do you know that your brother Lei has returned to Xi'an?" Xin was surprised and said, "Haven't you contacted him?" "Not yet. Only you know that I've returned to Xi'an. Others don't know my whereabouts, including your sister Lin Su," Qin Shing said honestly. Xin said honestly, "Oh, it seems that Brother Lei has returned some time ago. I heard that he has been in a bad mood recently and has been drinking outside." Qin Shing frowned slightly. Apparently, he was unhappy because of what had happened in Hangzhou, or because he had contacted Lao Chang and learned the truth about what had happened in Huangmei town. Qin Shing said worriedly, "Give me your brother Lei's phone number. I'll call him." Xin immediately took out her phone and searched for Hao Lei's number. At the same time, she asked, "Brother, how are you and Sister Lin? Why don't you contact her? She must be worried about you." Qin Shing squinted and gritted his teeth as he said, "It's not that we haven't contacted each other. I've told her that I'm fine, but she doesn't know what has happened to me recently. After the Spring Festival, I'll go to Ningbo to meet her openly. This time, I'll see how the Lin family in Ningbo can stop me." Xin did not know the resentment in Qin Shing's heart and the promise he had made to Lin Su. She just supported Qin Shing firmly and cheered him on. After getting Hao Lei's phone number, Qin Shing immediately walked to the balcony. After staying silent for a while, he slowly dialed Hao Lei's number. After a while, the phone was connected. Hearing the noise on the other side, Hao Lei said impatiently, "Who is it?" Qin Shing replied emotionally, "Brother, I'm back." Chapter 388. Bowing his head to admit his mistake. Chapter 387. Apologize. It's the last few hours. Whether we can make it to the top 3 depends on our efforts. Come on. Qin Shing could not remember many phone numbers, except for his friends and relatives who had never changed their phone numbers. Hao Lei had changed too many numbers, and the latest one was after he went to Hangzhou. Of course, Qin Shing could not remember it, so he could only ask Xinshin for it. Since he had returned to Xi'an, Qin Shing had officially started a new life. He had endured the setbacks and tribulations in the past, accepted his new identity, and reflected on himself. It was time for him to contact his brothers and friends who had gone through thick and thin with him. On the other side of the phone, Hao Lei suddenly laughed like a madman after receiving a call, scaring his friends around him. Those who didn't know what was going on thought that Hao Lei had some kind of hidden mental illness, and they almost called 120 to send him to the hospital. Those who played mahjong with Hao Lei were Lao Meng and his buddies in junior high school. They all thought that Hao Lei had been in a bad mood since he came back from Hangzhou and often drank with his friends late at night. They did not know what had happened to him, but he did not say anything. They were afraid that he would take it too hard, so they kept him company. Moreover, the new year was quite lively. Lao Meng pulled Hao Lei and said, "What the F***ck? Bro, what's wrong with you? It's the new year. Don't scare us." Besides Lao Meng, Wu Hao, Zhao Xian, and their girlfriends or wives also played mahjong with them. Since that incident, Wu Hao and Zhao Xian had reflected on themselves more or less. Not to mention how they had been humiliated and suffered losses last time, they had behaved like this in front of their real buddies, which was disgusting enough. Later, Lao Meng often scolded them, knowing that they were not as good as Qin Shing in front of him. When they were in school, they could not compete with Qin Shing in anything, not to mention Su Qin. After graduation and entering the society, they finally achieved something under the protection of their parents, so they wanted to find what they had lost in front of Qin Shing. However, Qin Shing treated them as his real friends, but they treated him like this, which made Qin Shing a little angry. After being educated by Lao Meng for many times, or because they had experienced a lot during this period, or because Su Qin had talked with them, or because Hao Lei had confided in them after drinking too much after coming back, they finally came to their senses. "Brother Lei, are you out of your mind, or did you just hit the jackpot?" Wu Hao asked, puzzled. Hao Lei, who was so excited that he almost cried tears of joy, came back to his senses. He shouted at them, "Don't jinx it. I'll tell you the good news later." After that, Hao Lei picked up his cell phone and walked to the balcony. He asked in confusion, "Where are you now?" "Xian Jindi Furong Shijiao," Qin Shing said, squinting. He could hear Hao Lei's excited laughter over the phone. Hao Lei said without hesitation, "Wait for me. I'll be right there." "Well, I'll find a place nearby to wait for you. Call me later," Qin Shing said faintly. After Hao Lei hung up the phone and went back to his room, Zhao Xian couldn't help but ask, "Brother Lei, who called to make you so happy? Is it your girlfriend?" "Take a guess." Hao Lei purposely kept them guessing. Wu Hao understood tacitly. "Qin Shing." Hao Lei patted Wu Hao's shoulder and smiled. "You're so smart. Qin Shing is back. He's in Xi'an now. I'll go there now. Do you want to go with me?" Hearing this, Lao Meng said excitedly, "What the F***ck Qin Shing is back. He disappeared for so long. Finally, he's willing to show up. I'll go with you. I have to talk to him. He's like this every time. We're worried that he'll really die one day." Wu Hao and Zhao Xian looked at each other. Because of what happened last year, they had really offended Qin Shing. If Qin Shing hadn't cared about their relationship in the past, they might have been disabled now. Therefore, Wu Hao said uneasily, "Is it appropriate for us to go?" Lao Meng looked at Hao Lei. It was not up to him to decide. It had to be Hao Lei's decision. After all, Hao Lei was the closest to Qin Shing now. He had been following Qin Sheng for the past 2 years. Because of something, Hao Lei cherished the relationship between brothers more and more. He also knew that Wu Hao and Zhao Xian had come to their senses and felt deeply guilty about what had happened in the past. After all, they had been brothers for so many years. There might be some contradictions and conflicts, but as long as they turned back in time, it was all right. Many people might discover that no matter how many years you've been in society, no matter if you're a big shot or an ordinary person, those friends who you can truly trust with will definitely have the same memories as you. Many people's best friends are classmates from middle school and high school. From the beginning to the end, everyone would like to meet such brothers or friends. However, most people would break up after a while. Hao Lei hoped that these former best friends could still be brothers after many years. Moreover, this time, Wu Hao and Zhao Xian had helped him a lot and mentioned what had happened last time many times. Hao Lei thought for a while and finally made up his mind. He knew Qin Sheng's character very well. Qin Sheng would not care about these small things. Although Wu Hao and Zhao Xian had offended him before, they used to be brothers. Hao Lei thought for a while and said, "There is nothing inappropriate about it. Qin Sheng is not that narrow-minded. As long as you really treat him as a friend, he will treat you the same way as before. After all, we are the only ones who have been through this together all these years." Since Hao Lei had said so, Wu Hao and Zhao Xian could not say anything more. They also wanted to apologize to Qin Sheng in person and completely untie the knot in their hearts. Wu Hao looked at Zhao Xian and said, gritting his teeth, "Let's go. No matter what Qin Sheng does, as long as he can forgive us." Zhao Xian also nodded silently. So the four men set off from the TV tower to Jindi Furong Shijia. Of course, they did not bring their wives or girlfriends. After all, some words were suitable for them to be present. In Jindi Furong Shijia, after hanging up the phone with Hao Lei, Qin Sheng thought of Chang Baji again. He did not know whether Lao Chang was in Xi'an, so he subconsciously called Lao Chang again. However, Lao Chang's phone was turned off, which made Qin Sheng somewhat worried. Finally, Qin Sheng thought of Lin Su. He hesitated for a while and did not call her. He wanted to call her tomorrow night, which might be more appropriate. After the phone call, Qin Sheng returned to the living room and said, "Auntie, sister, Xin, I'm going out to lie down. It may be a little late." "It's so late. Where are you going?" Auntie Wang asked with some doubts. Qin Sheng smiled and explained, "I just came back today and will leave tomorrow. I have an appointment with Hao Lei. We haven't seen each other for a long time." "Oh, lazy. He returned to Xi'an some time ago and came to see me. Take care and go home early." Auntie Wang was relieved. She was very familiar with Hao Lei and knew that he was one of Qin Sheng's best friends. Every time he returned to Xi'an, he would come back to see her. Qin Ran smiled and stood up. "How about I go with you? I'll go back to the hotel directly and pick you up tomorrow morning." Qin Sheng thought for a while and nodded. "Okay." At this time, Qin Ran slowly stood up and said to Xin and Auntie Wang, "Auntie Wang, Xin, I'll leave first. I didn't have a good chat with you this time. I'll stay a few more days when I come to Xi'an next time." Auntie Wang said politely, "Well, I'll definitely go to Beijing if I have a chance. By the way, Ran, sometimes Qin Sheng is a bit impulsive. If he does something wrong, you can talk to him and make him take fewer detours." Qin Ran smiled and said, "Auntie Wang, don't worry. I'll definitely control him." They chatted for a while, and then Auntie Wang and Xin walked Qin Sheng and Qin Ran out. After leaving Furong Shijia, Qin Sheng searched for a tea house that was still open nearby. Then he drove to the tea house next to the Hyatt Hotel. Qin Sheng and Qin Ran arrived first. He had already sent the address to Hao Lei. Sitting in the private room, Qin Ran said casually, "I know Hao Lei. He has always been with you." Qin Sheng nodded silently and said, "He is my best friend. He has suffered a lot with me." Qin Ran chuckled and said, "Now the bitterness is over." Of course, Qin Shing understood what his sister meant. No matter how the Qin family would treat Hao Lei, at least he would not let Hao Lei down in the future. As long as he had a high position and wealth, Hao Lei would have a bright future. About 10 minutes later, there was a noise outside the private room. When Qin Shing was confused, the door of the private room was pushed open by the waiter from outside. Hao Lei came in first with Lao Meng, followed by Wu Hao and Zhao Xian, who did not know how to face Qin Shing. At this time, Qin Shing had already stood up. He was not surprised to see Lao Meng. After all, only Lao Meng could hang out with Hao Lei and him. Qin Shing was about to greet Hao Lei and Lao Meng with a smile, but his face changed slightly when he saw Wu Hao and Zhao Xian following them. Although they used to be friends, Qin Shing had been hurt by what had happened that time, so he did not treat them as friends anymore. He did not expect that Hao Lei would bring them here. Why? Although Hao Lei was usually dull and did not talk much, he was extraordinarily smart. After all, in the army, one could not become the best soldier only by relying on his physical strength. Qin Ran did not know what had happened here. She thought that those who were brought here by Hao Lei should be Qin Shing's best friends in Xi'an. So she just smiled and looked at them. The atmosphere seemed to be a little awkward. Qin Shing did not know why Hao Lei brought these two people here. After all, they were brothers, and Qin Shing would not embarrass them too much. He had to force a smile and said, "Come in." After they sat down, Hao Lei could not talk about what had happened in Hangzhou at this time, let alone ask about Qin Shing's current situation. So he could only find a topic to talk about. He saw the amazing Qin Ran when he came in, but he was used to Qin Shing being surrounded by different beauties. He just felt a little uncomfortable. When Lin Su appeared in the past, Han Bing and Qin Shing did not have anything to do with each other, so Hao Lei could understand. But now, Lin Su was Qin Shing's real girlfriend, and she had done so much for him. Qin Shing had forgotten Lin Su and hooked up with another beauty. Of course, Hao Lei was not happy. So he squinted and asked, "What? Don't you want to introduce this beauty to us?" Qin Ran felt that the atmosphere was not right, because Qin Shing did not look that happy. Before she could figure out what was going on, Hao Lei started to pick on her. Of course, Qin Ran knew that he had misunderstood, because the look in Hao Lei's eyes was similar to the look in Xian's eyes when they saw her. So before Qin Shing opened his mouth, Qin Ran took the initiative to introduce herself. "My name is Qin Ran, Qin Shing's sister." Hearing this, Hao Lei felt relieved. The others were also curious about Qin Ran's identity. Like Hao Lei, they were more or less envious of Qin Shing's luck with women. At this time, they also understood and greeted Qin Ran one after another. Chapter 389. Chapter 388. Can you do it? It's the last few hours. I'm counting on you. Top 3, go, go. Though Lao Meng had called Qin Shing to help them explain what had happened last time, Qin Shing was really hurt by Wu Hao and Zhao Xian. No one would treat a former brother like that. So Qin Shing had not planned to forgive them, nor did he want to have any connection with them. Following that, he also had an opinion about Lao Meng. Today, Qin Shing brought Qin Ran to meet Hao Lei because he wanted his sister to meet her best brother. Secondly, he wanted to tell Hao Lei something and ask him to meet him in Beijing after the Spring Festival. However, Hao Lei brought Lao Meng with him, which was not a big deal. But Qin Shing was somewhat dissatisfied with Wu Hao and Zhao Xian. In this way, they would not have a chance to talk about these things. They could only contact each other on the phone. There were 6 people in the box. After greeting them, Qin Ran looked at Qin Shing's friends. She guessed that there must be some conflicts between them. Otherwise, Qin Shing would not look so bad. Hao Lei took the initiative to ask, "When did you come back? How have you been recently?" "I just came back at noon today. I don't know if my life is good or bad. But my life has changed. I'll tell you about what happened during this period." Qin Shing took a sip of tea and said calmly. Qin Ran took the initiative to pour tea for everyone. There were fruits and snacks on the table, but no one seemed to have any appetite. Hao Lei did not know whether Qin Shing could forgive Wu Hao and Zhao Xian, but he had to try. After all, he could feel their sincerity. Hao Lei took a look at Zhao Xian and Wu Hao. Instead of being embarrassed, it was better to be frank. He said directly, Lao Qin, I asked Wu Hao and Zhao Xian to come here. I know what happened last time hurt you, but fortunately, nothing serious happened. I have been with them since I came back to Xi'an. After all, we used to be brothers. Later, they became more or less arrogant or changed because of different experiences. However, we have been together for so many years. We can't just end it because of this little conflict. After all, we have lived for less than 30 years. How many friends can accompany you halfway? That's all? Qin Shing frowned slightly. It seemed that he did not forgive Hao Lei. Hao Lei continued, a lot of things have happened to us over the past year. A lot of things have happened to Wu Hao and Zhao Xian. They have completely reflected on themselves. Moreover, they are not bad people by nature. I don't know if you can forgive me, but at least give them a chance. After Hao Lei finished speaking, he immediately looked at Wu Hao and Zhao Xian and said, What are you waiting for? Do you really think you are here to drink tea? Originally, Wu Hao and Zhao Xian did not want to say anything since there were outsiders present. However, Qin Shing's attitude made them understand that if they did not solve this problem today, they might not even have the chance to meet each other in the future. If they cherished this friend and the feelings they once had, then they should swallow their pride, lower their heads, and admit their mistakes. Wu Hao gritted his teeth and said, Qin Shing, to be honest, you know me. I'm a little conceited and vain, but I'm not a bad person. Otherwise, we can't play together. When we were in school, although we were good friends, I was not convinced because I had a crush on Su Qin and you were in the limelight at school. After the college entrance examination, I wanted to go to Beijing. I heard from others that Uncle Su asked Su Qin to stay in Xi'an, so I stayed in Xi'an. Later, I learned that Su Qin followed you to Shanghai. At that moment, my heart was broken. Therefore, during the few years of college, except for the winter and summer vacations, I seldom called you. After graduation, I swore to myself that I, Wu Hao, would make a name for myself. I would do better than Qin Shing and make Su Qin regret. Therefore, with the protection of my father's generation, I finally made a name for myself. Last year, now the year before last, when you came back to Xi'an, you called me and said that you wanted to drink. Because I really had something to do at that time, and you had disappeared for 2 years, plus the things that happened before, I did not go there. Later, when you came back to Xi'an, Hao Lei and Lao Meng told me in advance, so I prepared the dinner that made me want to slap my face. At that time, when I heard Hao Lei talking about what you had done outside, I just wanted to show off in front of you. I wanted to say that you, Qin Shing, were very powerful at that time. Why are you in such a miserable situation now? Look at how powerful I am. I hoped that you could curry favor with those in power in front of me, so that I could completely vent my anger. But you didn't. You behaved very calmly and just treated it as meeting your brothers. The more you behaved like that, the angrier I was. Therefore, I deliberately provoked and humiliated you with words, making you completely furious. Later, I just wanted to save face, to scare you and make you apologize to me. In fact, I really didn't want to do anything, and I didn't have the guts to do that. Moreover, we used to be brothers. Wu Hao said very sincerely. He was not afraid of making a fool of himself, nor was he afraid that Qin Shing would not forgive him. Only by saying it out could he feel completely comfortable. After all, he had been holding it in for a long time. That's it. Qin Shing sneered after hearing that. How could he let him forgive him after saying it out? Wu Hao shook his head and said, If it was only this, of course, I might not have reflected on myself so much. These past few years, perhaps because I had walked too fast, my heart had become a little wild. However, many things had happened in this year, no matter if it was my family or myself. They had made me completely understand who my true friends were and how I should live. Only when people are down and out would they understand these things. Only then did I realize that I was almost 30 years old, and the happiest days of my life were during middle school and high school. The only people I could really treat as friends were you guys. Ever since that incident, you guys have completely distanced yourself from me. Only then did I completely wake up to reality. I really wanted to slap myself. After that incident, Lao Meng always scolded me, saying that we used to be brothers, and it was necessary for me to do that. Later, the more I thought about it, the worse I felt. I wanted to call you several times, but I didn't have the courage. Some time ago, Brother Lei came back, and we drank together every day. When I was drunk, I cried to Brother Lei about these things. I called you, but your phone was turned off, and Brother Lei said that he couldn't find you. That day, Brother Lei drank too much and told us that you had a hard time outside these 2 years. You offended a lot of people, and sometimes you even walked around the gate of hell. Now you are still hiding from your enemies, and even dare not come back for the spring festival. The more he said that, the more upset I felt. My brother has it so hard out there. I can't help him at all, and they never say anything. I even King stabbed him in the back. Who do I think I am? I deserve to be like this. No matter how well I do, I won't have any real friends. I've already chased all my real friends away. When Wu Hao finished saying these words, his face was already covered with tears, because he had suffered too much during this period. If not for Brother Lei, Lao Meng, and Zhao Xian accompanying him, he might really not have been able to hold on. This time, Qin Sheng was really moved. No matter how cruel he was, he couldn't bear to see his former brothers in such a miserable state. Alas! Qin Sheng let out a deep sigh, feeling a little emotional. Since he had said so much, Wu Hao was not afraid of being laughed at anymore, so he continued, Qin Sheng, to tell you something that you may not know, I secretly went to Shanghai to find Su Qin. I thought you had broken up, and I had some achievements now, hoping that Su Qin would choose me. But what she said to me made me completely give up and let go. She said that in this life, you can't get everything you want just because you have a good family background, good looks, and rich, and you can't really live a happy life. She didn't choose you because of those things, but because of the innocence in your heart, because of your heart of innocence. Only then did I realize that I was worlds apart from you. Qin Sheng was a little surprised. It didn't occur to him that Su Qin would say these words, which made him feel more guilty about her. Wu Hao let out a long sigh and said, Now I already understand that no matter how good I am just a walking dead. But Qin Sheng, you made me understand a lot of things, and I don't want to lose a friend like you. That matter has become a knot in my heart. I have always felt guilty about it. I often get drunk and cry bitterly. I ask myself why I have become such a person. I have changed so much that I don't even recognize myself. Why did I do those things to my own brothers? So today when I knew you were back, I came here shamelessly. I didn't expect you to forgive me, but I must say these words, or I will feel sad. As for whether we can still be brothers or not, I don't blame you. I only blame myself for being stupid. After saying these words, Wu Hao picked up the wine glass in front of him, treated it as wine, and drank it up. During this period, Lao Meng and Hao Lei had been used to Wu Hao's appearance, which was much better than before. In those days, he was completely like a ghost. After Wu Hao finished his words, Zhao Xian said at this time, Qin Sheng, I don't talk nonsense like Haozi, and I don't have so many grievances with you. When we were in junior high school, I really admired you from the bottom of my heart, and I just wanted to surpass you. Later, our relationship has been good. It's just that Haozi and I were close to each other, and I knew what he did to you and Su Qin, so I kept a distance from you on purpose. Later on, I also stood on House's side and wanted to avenge him. That's why I did that. To be honest, I don't hate you at all, and I still regard you as a friend and brother. When we did that thing, I even tried to persuade House, saying that we might have gone too far. At that time, he was too excited, and I couldn't persuade him. Qin Xing knew Wu Hao and Zhao Xian better in the past, so he could tell whether their words were true or not. This was Zhao Xian's character. If he was close to someone, he would definitely not cheat on them. He was more sentimental and righteous. Lao Meng and Brother Lei know what happened to us during this period, but you definitely don't know. Both of our families were involved in some troubles, and our businesses were completely ruined. At this time, we really reflected on ourselves and what we did wrong. That thing has always been a pit in our hearts, and we can't get over it. Zhao Xian smiled bitterly and said, "Today we came here shamelessly, and said these things shamelessly, just to apologize to you, not to ask for your forgiveness. We want you to know that your two brothers are wrong, and they are not that kind of people." After saying these words, Zhao Xian shut up sensibly. He and Wu Hao lowered their heads silently, waiting for Qin Xing to make a choice and accept it calmly. Qin Xing had mixed feelings. He didn't know what to say, nor did he know what had happened to make them lose their fighting spirit and become so lifeless. At this time, Hao Lei opened his mouth again and said, "Lao Qin, do you know why I chose to forgive them? It's not because of what they said, but because they said something else." "What?" Qin Xing frowned and asked. Hao Lei said slowly, "That day I was drunk, and they knew something about us outside. I didn't mean to tell them, but I felt very wronged during this period. You must know why I felt wronged." Wu Hao and Zhao Xian said, "Brother Lei, since it's so hard for you and Qin Xing outside, why don't you come back? Although we can't protect ourselves now, we are more or less capable. If we work hard together, I don't believe that we can't make a name for ourselves." In my opinion, at that time they could still think of you and me, no matter how bad they are. Hao Lei's words moved Qin Xing completely. Qin Xing fell into deep thought. Qin Ran didn't interrupt them, but just listened to them. She roughly understood what was going on. She appreciated Wu Hao and Zhao Xian's attitude very much. Not everyone could do this. No one said anything, waiting for Qin Xing to make a choice. Lao Meng couldn't stand it anymore and shouted, "Lao Qin, say something. Whether you agree or not, no one will blame you. It's also a relief for them." Qin Xing shook his head helplessly. In the end, he smiled gently and said, "At this time, we should drink some wine. I remember that I haven't had a good drink with you for a long time." Chapter 390. Chapter 389. Start again? It's finally over. We won the third place smoothly. It was a counterattack all the way. This is the best gift you can give to Old Guan. Thanks to all the friends who have contributed during this period, and thanks to the bosses who turned the tide at the last moment. You didn't drop the ball, and Old Guan didn't let you down. Thank you again. Last time when Lin Su came back, Qin Xing had met Wu Hao and Zhao Xian. It was also Lao Meng who arranged the meeting. At that time, Qin Xing also went there. He didn't mind meeting Wu Hao and Zhao Xian. After all, they used to be brothers. Others didn't care about it, but Qin Xing cared about it. That day, Wu Hao and Zhao Xian also apologized. Qin Xing smiled and said that he forgave them. They even drank a bottle of beer each. But did Qin Xing really forgive them? No. Although he said he forgave them, he didn't forgive them in his heart. Because their relationship couldn't go back to the past, and also because Wu Hao and Zhao Xian didn't apologize from the bottom of their hearts. Qin Xing could see this, which was totally different from tonight. After that, Qin Xing knew some inside story. These two learned from Lao Meng what he had done outside, so they apologized that night for the reason. What happened after that day? Qin Sheng, Wu Hao and Zhao Xian didn't contact each other anymore. Usually Qin Sheng was busy. They called him occasionally, but he didn't answer them. He ignored their WeChat messages and so on selectively. Of course, they also knew that it was not over, and Qin Sheng still didn't forgive them. So this time, after Hao Lei came back, they opened their hearts to Hao Lei. They wanted Qin Sheng to forgive them for real instead of perfunctorily. Tonight, they met by chance. Qin Sheng was angry not because he saw Wu Hao and Zhao Xian, but because he only had such a short time. He wanted to have a good talk with Hao Lei, instead of wasting time on these unworthy people. Hao Lei was a little angry. However, he didn't expect that Wu Hao and Zhao Xian would bring up the past again. Compared with the casual attitude last time, they really bowed their heads and apologized sincerely this time. For young people like them, who were originally arrogant, bowing their heads to such an extent meant that they really apologized. If it were the old Qin Sheng, he might have a knot in his heart and would not really forgive them. However, during this period of time, Qin Sheng had changed a lot. He was willing to cherish the good times in the past, and could not bear to see his brothers in such a state. Moreover, he was a nostalgic person. So he nodded in the end. After Qin Sheng said this, Wu Hao and Zhao Xian felt relieved and sighed with emotion. Wu Hao covered his face and cried. Zhao Xian also had tears in his eyes. They had taken a lot of wrong turns, which was why they had today's retribution. Fortunately, they had woken up in time and started all over again. Qin Sheng said that he would drink some wine, but he was just saying it. Obviously, he would not really drink. After all, he did not have time. He could only wait until he came back next time. They chatted for a while in the tea-house. Wu Hao and Zhao Xian asked Qin Sheng sincerely if the thing that Hao Lei said was over. They were more or less worried, and this time they were really worried. Qin Sheng smiled and said that it was over, so they didn't have to worry. Wu Hao and Zhao Xian asked again about Qin Sheng's future plans and whether he wanted to go back to Xi'an. Although they were down and out now, they still had some ability to help Qin Sheng. After hearing this, Qin Sheng was very touched, but he politely refused, saying that he would think about it after the spring festival. It was getting late. Qin Sheng told them honestly that he would spend the spring festival in Beijing this year and would leave tomorrow morning. They would get together next time when he came back. After hearing this, everyone was very surprised, but they did not say anything. After all, they definitely did not know the reason. Therefore, before 11 o'clock, they left. Qin Sheng said that he would send his sister to the hotel and asked Hao Lei to accompany her. Lao Meng left with Wu Hao and Zhao Xian. This ending was satisfactory. Lao Meng, Wu Hao and Zhao Xian watched Qin Sheng and Zhao Xian get in the car and leave. Qin Sheng walked in the direction of the Hyatt Hotel. After walking for a while, Hao Lei said, Lao Qin, you don't blame me, do you? To be honest, I did at the beginning, but not now, Qin Sheng said honestly. He had really forgiven Wu Hao and Zhao Xian, but he was not sure whether they could go back to the past completely. Hao Lei smiled faintly and said, Then I also want to ask you the truth. Have you really forgiven them? To be honest, I have forgiven them. After so many years of friendship, I can also see that they are sincere this time, not just casually talking about it last time. Qin Sheng said thoughtfully. Hao Lei nodded silently and said, That's good. It hasn't been easy for them in the past 6 months. A lot of things have happened to them. Maybe it's because of this that they can see clearly who is a true friend and who is a pack of scoundrels. People will change, but not many people cannot forget their original intentions. I am very happy to see that they can walk back to the past. I am also very happy. If we can still be like high school when we are old, I think it is worth it. Qin Sheng squinted and smiled. This was the friendship that everyone wanted, but few people could make it. Hao Lei nodded. He was a person who valued relationships and especially valued friendship. After thinking for a while, Hao Lei changed the topic and said, By the way, are you really not going to spend the spring festival in Xi'an? Why are you in such a hurry to leave? Qin Shing thought for a while and said, I originally wanted to tell you a lot of things tonight, but I did not expect that they would come. I can only briefly explain it to you now. Let me introduce to you again, this beauty behind me is my sister, my biological sister. We share the same parents. Qin Ran did not say much. She just observed these friends of Qin Shing. She did not care about the past. Now he wanted to know who were real friends and who were fake friends, so she would treat them differently in the future. If they were really good to Qin Shing, she would not let them down. If they were stabbed in the back, she would not let them down. Hao Lei was originally curious about Qin Ran's identity, but he did not care about it just now. He only heard that this beauty's surname was Qin, so he thought she was Qin Shing's cousin. But now after hearing Qin Shing's introduction, Hao Lei was shocked and did not know what to say. Qin Ran smiled politely and greeted Hao Lei again. Hello, Hao Lei. I have heard Qin Shing mention you many times. Qin Shing could understand Hao Lei's reaction. His friends who knew his background would be shocked, so he gave Hao Lei a simple explanation, which was some things that happened during this period. I see. Hao Lei sighed after hearing it. I did not expect it to be so complicated. Anyway, you have found your family. I am happy for you. Hao Lei was really happy for Qin Shing. This man, who could only rely on his grandfather in the past, had no one to rely on after his grandfather passed away. Now he finally found his family. Qin Shing sighed and said, So I have to spend the Spring Festival in Beijing this year. After all, I have to see a lot of relatives. Otherwise, why can't I spend the Spring Festival with Auntie Wang and Xinxin? I haven't spent the Spring Festival with them for many years. Hao Lei comforted him. You will have a chance in the future. At this time, Qin Shing said seriously, There is one more thing I want to tell you. After the Spring Festival, you can directly meet me in Beijing. No later than the 15th of the first lunar month. We have to start again. Start again? Hao Lei said in surprise. Qin Shing sneered and said, From Shanghai to Hangzhou, we suffered so many losses. Should we just admit it? Qingyang died for me. How can I not avenge him? Hao Lei already knew about these things. Chang Baji had contacted him later. He went back to Xi'an some time ago and they talked about these things in detail. Hao Lei knew that Gu Qingyang died to protect Qin Shing. Gu Xiaobo betrayed them for fame and wealth. Qin Shing was still on the run. This was also the reason why Hao Lei was in a bad mood recently. Hao Lei said sincerely, Lao Qin, I think we should wait until we are strong enough. Otherwise, we will not be their opponent. After all, their enemies were too powerful. Qin Shing did not know how to introduce them to Hao Lei. He could only say with a smile, We didn't before, but it may not be the case now. You will know when you arrive in Beijing. Qin Shing's words were full of confidence, but Hao Lei was confused. After all, he did not know the Qin family's background. Thinking of this, Qin Shing asked in a hurry, By the way, did Lao Chang contact you? I can't get through to him. Hao Lei said honestly, He went back to Xi'an some time ago and then left for the northeast. Now I don't know where he is, and I can't get through to him. Qin Shing shook his head and smiled bitterly, Forget it. I will contact him later. After arriving at the gate of the Hyatt Hotel, Hao Lei took a taxi and left. Qin Shing sent his sister to the hotel. On the way to the hotel, he said with a smile, Hao Lei is really good. He looks honest. I don't know your friends well. I don't know what happened to you in the past, but at least they take you seriously. Qin Shing said with a smile, Sister, don't think so much. I have a plan. You should go to bed now. Come over early tomorrow for breakfast. Qin Ran said unhappily, Do you think I am too long-winded? Qin Shing smiled and flattered his sister, No, I dare not. Everyone knows that my sister is the best to me. Qin Ran snorted and said, That's more like it. Okay, go back early. Don't let Auntie Wang wait for too long. I will go upstairs now. See you tomorrow. Qin Sheng nodded and said good night with a smile. Then he left the hotel and took a taxi back to Jindi Furong Shurjia. When he returned to the Lin family, Auntie Wang and Xin were still awake. They were worried about him, so they waited for him to come back. Qin Sheng chatted with them for a while and answered their questions. It was not until 12 o'clock that he went to bed. Lying on this familiar old bed, Qin Sheng felt very relaxed. Today was finally different from the past. Perhaps his luck had taken a turn for the better. During this period of time, there was nothing that bothered him. Instead, there were all happy things. Tomorrow was New Year's Eve. He hoped that everything would go well next year. While thinking about it, Qin Sheng fell asleep unknowingly. In the morning, when Qin Sheng woke up, it was already 8 o'clock. He had a good sleep. When he came out of the shower, his sister, Qin Ran, had come from the hotel. Seeing him, she joked, "You are really a lazy pig. I have been waiting for you for half an hour. Hurry up and eat breakfast. We don't have much time." Qin Sheng did not dare to talk nonsense. After saying goodbye to Auntie Wang and Xin, he quickly sat down and ate breakfast. After finishing his breakfast, he told Auntie Wang and Xin something and was ready to go to the airport with his sister. Outside the door, the driver had been waiting for a long time. After waving goodbye to Auntie Wang and Xin, Qin Sheng got in the car reluctantly and left. Every time he was in a hurry, he had no time to accompany Auntie Wang. Qin Sheng felt a little guilty, but he would make it up to her in the future. At 12 o'clock sharp, the plane finally landed at the Capital International Airport. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.